As mayor of the city of Stanton, I call the April 14th, 2022 Stanton City Council work session to order. The first item on the agenda is to bring in Councilor Dole and Councilor Mead into the meeting. On April 11th, 2022, I received a request from Councilor Dole to participate remotely in the April 14th, 2022 Stanton City Council meeting due to a personal matter that prevents her physical attendance at the meeting. Pursuant to the Freedom of Information Act, I will now ask Councilor Dole, well, hold on, I'm getting ahead of myself. My apologies. We need to fix the script on this, Mr. Kessiker, okay? At this point, I will entertain a motion to allow Councilor Dole to participate through remote participation.
Madam Mayor,
Vice Mayor Robertson.
pursuant to Stanton City Council Procedural Memorandum Number 3, I move to allow Councilor Dole to remotely participate in the April 14th, 2022 Stanton City Council meeting due to a personal matter.
All right, there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
A second.
All right, there's a second. Any further discussion? All right. At this time, I will ask Councilor Dole to state the personal matter which makes it unable for her to attend tonight's council meeting.
Yes, I'm out of the country.
All
And
righty.
specifically, in Prague.
Oh, nice.
Oh,
All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none.
go.
Yeah.
Hearing none, Mr. Kessiker, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Robertson,
Aye.
Mr. Holmes,
Aye.
Mayor Oakes,
Aye.
Ms. Darby,
Aye.
Mr. Claffey,
Aye.
motion carries.
All right, thank you. Councilor Dole, you have pretty much stated the remote location from which you're participating. Can you state that one more time for the record? I think she's muted.
I am in Prague.
All right, could everyone on council hear Councilor Dole?
Carolyn. how do-
Hang on one second. Everyone out in the audience?
Yes.
All righty, thank you.
How do we go to Kill Devil Hills one week and Prague the next? I mean,
Well connected. All right, the next item is on April 13th, 2022, I received a request from Councilor Mead to participate remotely in the April 14th, 2022 Stanton City Council meeting due to a family member's temporary medical condition that prevents her physical attendance at the meeting. I will now entertain a motion to allow Councilor Mead's remote participation in this meeting pursuant to Stanton City Council Procedural Memorandum Number 3.
Madam Mayor,
Vice Mayor Robertson.
pursuant to Stanton City Council Procedural Memorandum Number 3, I move to allow Councilor Mead to remotely participate in the April 14th, 2022 Stanton City Council meeting due to a family member's temporary medical condition.
All right, there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a,
Terry Holmes.
all right, thank you, Councilor Holmes. Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Kessiker, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Robertson,
Aye.
Ms. Darby,
Aye.
Mr. Holmes,
Aye.
Mayor Oakes,
Aye.
Mr. Claffey,
Aye.
Ms. Dahl,
Aye.
motion carries.
All right, welcome to both of you. All right, the next item is item 1. Yes,
Madam Mayor.
yes.
Again, to comply with the Freedom of Information Act, could you ask Ms. Mead where?
Oh, I'm
she's
sorry.
participating from?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the point of order. Councilor Mead, can you please state from the remote location you are participating in tonight's meeting?
I'm participating in the meeting from 342 Sherwood Avenue, Stanton.
Could everyone on council hear Councilor Mead?
Yes.
Everyone in the audience? All right, are we in compliant, Mr.
Yes,
Blair?
yes.
All righty, now we're moving on to item number 1, which is a consideration of the work session and regular meeting agendas.
Mayor Oakes,
Councilor Mead.
I move that the regular agenda be amended to include item EA, consideration of a resolution supporting the governor's amendments to HB 902 and SB 283, and item FA, closed meeting for consideration of a potential public contract with a government consulting firm and consideration of recent actions of the nominations committee.
All right, there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Mayor Oakes, I second that.
All right, that's Counselor Darby is second. Any further discussion? Mr. Blair?
Ms. Mead, you had mentioned at discussion of the nominations committee.
Yeah, what's that about?
And that would just require a separate statutory site.
So you would
it's-
suggest that I amend the motion
I-
to state,
No, I can do that. To be clear, I'll have to redo the closed meeting motion for that.
okay,
Um,
All right, so for a point of clarification, we have a motion on the floor to add item E, a consideration of a resolution supporting the governor's amendments to HB 902 and SB 283, and also to include a motion, an item to discuss the nominating committee. Am I correct?
And to discuss a,
Closed meeting for consideration of a public contract.
right,
Mr. Blair, you're,
And-
just for clarification.
right. I believe, Counselor Mead, you want to go into closed session to discuss the potential public contract and the nominations committee? Is
that's
that?
correct. Recent actions of the nominations committee. That cannot be discussed in public because if there are personnel matters involved.
Okay, so we're good?
If council, yes.
Okay. You're
It's
okay
fine.
with this? All right. All right. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? And hearing none, Mr. Kessinger, please call the roll.
Mr. Holmes,
Aye.
Mr. Claffey,
Aye.
Ms. Dahl,
Aye.
Ms. Darby,
Aye.
Mayor Oakes,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Robertson,
Aye, just because you've piqued my interest.
Ms. Mead.
Aye,
Motion carries.
All right, thank you. The next item is item number 2, a joint work session. Yeah. Oh, I'm
Mayor
sorry.
Oakes, I hate to
Oh,
disturb.
that's right. I'm sorry. You wanted to mention
But-
something about the timing of when we have item F.
Right. I wanted to ask the council, it dependent on you approving what you have. For item F, the closed meeting, typically that would come after matters from the public. Just wanted to make sure that's okay with the council that because with the closed meeting at the end of the meeting, that can take long and you typically don't want people just to wait in the audience.
Sure. So what you're saying is we'll go through item E and then have matters from the interim city manager, matters from the public, and then go into item F, which is the closed meeting.
Right.
Okay, all right. Is council okay with that arrangement? I'm not hearing
This is
it.
Carolyn Dole.
Counselor Dole.
I just want us to be thrifty with our time because it's actually 11:30 where I am now.
Okay, we will be mindful of that.
Thanks.
All righty. Okay, so that takes us on to item. Do you have?
I just would be a pumpkin. I would be asleep by now. So,
Okay, any additional comments, Mr. Blair?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
That's-
All right, that takes us on to agenda item number 2, a joint work session concerning the FY 2023 school board budget. Chairman Venable, would you
Yes.
like to call the school board to order?
Yes, Mayor Oakes, I'll call the Stanton School Board to order.
All righty, thank you, and thank you for your patience. We had to work out some kinks.
That's no problem, no problem.
All right, at this time, Ms. Beauregard.
I'd like to introduce Mr. Brad Wegner and Dr. Garrett Smith, who will do a quick presentation this evening, followed by a discussion, hopefully a quick discussion.
Yeah.
So I'm going to let them go to it.
Can we get it on the back?
Yep.
Thank you all for your attention. I'm going to try to keep my remarks brief. I just want to kind of highlight sort of what's transpired over the last several weeks and try to wrap it all together, a nice little bow for everybody, understand where we are and to some degree what our next steps are. We reached an agreement on fully funding Stanton City Schools for FY23. The appropriation is an increase of about $365,000 over the city's original proposal, and an increase of almost a little over $1.4 million or 10.6% over the FY22 appropriation. The budget for the schools is balanced, and there were no cuts to the expenditures that were presented in that original budget from the schools. Also, the schools will be drawing down as presented in our earlier budget presentation, $345,000 from our fund balance reserves, and also $376,000 from our health insurance reserves to address the increase in health insurance costs in in calendar year 23. The state is, as you may be aware, taking a long time to get to their budget. So our budget, and I'm sure the city's budget, will also be changing significantly or to some degree, I should say, over the next several weeks. The indications are that it's going to take them a while to work through their issues in Richmond. So we'll just keep plugging forward, and when we get it, we will adjust and amend the budget as needed, and we'll take it from there. But I don't anticipate that we're going to have any, we'll be able to work through it, I think. The next steps obviously will be adoption of the overall budget by the city council. And then ultimately, once that you all have approved the budget, the school board will meet again to adopt our revised budget. Some of the highlights from our school budget for FY23, 7 new positions that were almost practically mandated or necessary for us to bring on board. We've increased our stipend budget and full-time and continuing our full-time floater sub program, which is going to be funded through the ESSER program. And this was to address the shortage of teachers and the shortage of substitutes in the system at this point. We're going to continue with the expanded summer school to address learning loss, school improvement leaders to address the increased SOL testing that the state has pushed upon us. We will continue and add a new PK preschool classroom at Dixon to expand access to early education. We're going to continue with the 9th grade summer bridge program, which helps rising 9th graders get ready for their life in high school. Our student work-based learning program is going to provide students an opportunity to get real work experience and credit within the school system in various aspects of our operations. Going to fulfill our elementary school fine arts program. As you know, we were able to fully staff our fine arts teacher slots in the elementary schools last year, and we needed to follow up with that and give them some instruments to play. We're going to continue with our upstander training for students and staff. The kindness challenge will again happen again next year, and that, as you may be well aware, is funded by donations. And I believe this year, if I'm not mistaken, or next year, we'll be having a $10,000 contribution from the Community Foundation to do that. And then also, this is the last year before we have to reapply for the community eligibility provision, which provides free breakfast and lunch for all students in Stanton City Schools. There we go. With respect to our employees, the highlights for them include a 6% pay raise. We have set aside $250,000 for retention bonus payments. We will be increasing the minimum wage for our instructional assistants to $15.5 an hour. There will be no change in our employee health care premiums. The schools will be absorbing the cost of those premium increases. Also, in addition, to make life easier for our employees, we are offering free preschool for our employees' children, and also free after-school care for preschool through 6th grade students of our employees. Some questions were asked last about our compensation and benefits relative to our neighbors. And I've worked with Mr. Venn, and I can say that our salary levels in FY '23 still remain generally higher than our neighbors, despite a smaller raise in our division. However, that gap is narrowing, obviously. And also in general, I think it's fair to say that our health insurance is less costly than our neighbors. And there's some twists and turns to that, but overall, it's a much more beneficial deal for our employees than it is in our neighboring jurisdictions. Whoops. Another big win we had for the cities and the schools, I believe, was the creation and development of a new operational funding formula to replace the one that's been in place for the last 20 years or so. This new formula is going to promote greater transparency by using audited revenues rather than projections to determine what the funding for the schools would be. This new formula will ensure gradual and incremental growth in funding and will prevent a precipitous drop in funding as we saw in FY '21, unfortunately. We want to make sure that this new formula insulates the school from economic risks and provides a big advantage of this, I should say, is it provides our baseline funding for the schools earlier in the budget process, which allow us to better predict and manage our budget, as well as to compete more effectively for education talent instead of having to wait until April or May to start really trying to recruit hard. So those are some big advantages of this new formula. And you'll be seeing more from this as I think Mr. Blair is currently looking over a memorandum of understanding, and we're working through that document now. And then sort of the third big thing in the discussions over the last several months was our operations complex, consolidated operations facility, as well as the Shelburne renovations. The schools have selected Crabtree and Rohrbaugh to be our architecture and engineering provider for this. We have not completed the contract with them, and we're working through those issues right now. As you recall, they're the ones that provided those services on the construction of the high school project. We are in discussions with multiple landowners for a site for the consolidated operations facility. I think this provides us a little bit more leverage and help us get a better deal for that facility and site. And then as part of our sort of understanding with the city is that the true up or the reconciliation for funding that was left out in 21 and 22, since that's really become one-time money now, we can like to see that come to us through the form of additional capital contributions for this facility. Obviously, we don't know the full cost of those, and as we get closer and work more in depth with Crabtree, we'll be able to sort of start putting some meat on the bones of that plan. And then also our board will have to do some work in terms of transferring some of our fund balance over to our CIP plan that would also support that operations complex, as well as some of our outside agency obligations, if you will. And that's it. Happy to answer any questions, or it's a work session, so if you all would like to dialogue.
Questions by council members, school board members, any comments?
This is Brenda Mead. I have questions for Mr. Wagner.
Sure.
So you outlined the benefits for employees and the compensation. Are the instructional assistants in our neighboring jurisdictions or localities, are they receiving or have they already received a minimum wage increase?
I believe, I know, it's my understanding, I know that in Waynesboro, they're looking at about $15 to $15.50 an hour as well for the same sort of level of staff.
And the free pre-kindergarten for employees' children and free after-school care for pre-K to 6 students of employees, Are those benefits offered at other localities in the area?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. I recall hearing Dr. Smith speak about the regional program like VCTC and the funds that need to go there. Can you update us a little bit on where we are with that? Because that was a large amount of money.
Right now, it's now the
Shenandoah
Shenandoah-
Valley Center for Advanced Learning, right?
just sort of combining both the governor's school and VOTEC. At this point, they're working on a plan to do some basic infrastructure improvements there. And I think that's about a $3 million investment, or at least that's their budget. And that's a plan that we opted out of.
But what the biggest piece right now is we're in the middle of a strategic planning process that's going to also involve necessary improvements to the facilities. And so we need to have that set aside so that we can do our part in the next level of work.
Gotcha. And any idea what our part might be?
No, we're still at the beginning stages of that plan.
Yeah, so, I mean,
we can tell them when the other two divisions made the opening contribution for the renovations. It was 50, 25, 25. So Augusta put in 2 million, Waynesboro put in 1 million. And, we held because we had lots of questions we wanted answered about the direction of the new facility and programming.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, but I can't hear
I
anything.
was just getting ready to ask if you could please come to the podium. Sorry to make you repeat that, but
No problem. I'll start over. So good evening, Mayor Oaks and members of City Council. So in the meeting in the spring at VCTC, because the revenue share agreement for the regional programs is 50-25-25, and they wanted to dedicate some of their ARPA funds to renovating the building there. We just didn't have the money to do it, and we're working on trying to get the maintenance shop out of the basement of Shelburne and get an operations facility. But at that time, that's what we're using our ARPA money for, a big chunk of it. But at that time, the board, VCTC has its own board, and Mr. Venable and Mr. Ramsey are on the board. And at that time, we decided not to make a contribution, but Augusta made a $2 million contribution to the facility. Waynesboro made a $1 million contribution. We've held for now. We've told them we couldn't afford it. And we also said we want to know more about the strategic direction of the facility before we're ready to commit. And so that's kind of where we are. I think the strategic planning process is going really well. We've been impressed with the direction and some of the questions and things that we thought could improve. We're getting some answers about. And so we feel like we're moving in the right direction, and we've got the right leadership now at the regional program.
This is Brenda Mead. I have another question. So we're all anxiously awaiting the news from Richmond about the governor's budget and the state contribution or additional contributions to our schools. What would your priorities be should that additional funding come through? And what's your understanding of the areas of focus for that funding?
One of the biggest ones of concern for us is there's money in there for school construction on one side, but not the other. And so I think all the school divisions are hoping that the Senate version, that has more money in it for school construction comes through, because we're counting on that money on these two projects that are coming up.
How much are you counting on?
Yeah.
For us, it was
there was 1.8
1.8
in the original
million in the original proposal. The way that it would factor out for our school division with our enrollment and our composite index, we would get 1.8 million towards school construction.
And that's assuming the Senate version
Yes.
is passed as is?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
And the Dr. Smith, the facility that we're talking about, obviously you're just in the beginning stages, but what kind of figures do you think, what are we talking about? How much is it really going to cost to do this?
The total thing to purchase land and do improvements and new buildings. We're working like, and what we've talked to Mr. Trayer about is a ballpark figure of about $10 million to do it all.
Thank you.
Any additional comments, questions?
Yes, this is Carolyn Dole. I had a question about the, what you mentioned is the free childcare or pre
Sure.
whatever for employees.
Yeah.
Will that be taxable?
No. No, so what we're looking at, Councilmember Dull, is some other school divisions, as we compete with them. They've been able to get their salaries up higher. They've been able to give higher pay raises. For example, we'll lose teachers who live on the other side of the mountain. If they get a chance to get into Albemarle, Charlottesville, it's probably a $10,000 raise right off the bat. And plus they don't have to make that commute. Harrisonburg, I think average raise is going to be like 11% in Harrisonburg City Schools. And so what we've been trying to do as a school team is figure out what other incentives can we offer to employees that'll set us apart. If we can't keep up with them on raises, what else can we do? And, one of the big takeaways in our research for why the workforce didn't come back from the pandemic was childcare. At first, people said, the benefits are so great that people aren't coming back to work. Well, those benefits went away and people still didn't come back to work. And so childcare, especially through our research, is something that kept people from coming back. So, why pay all this money for childcare when I can just stay home and take care of my own children? We don't have this crazy lifestyle with two working parents running around all day. And I think a lot of us can relate to that. And so what we came up with is this idea that our employees, if you have a 3 or 4 year old and you want a slot in our awesome preschool program, you can have a slot in our awesome preschool program. We've wiped out the waiting list by adding classrooms the last couple of years. And so that we're able to do that now. And then we're working with the city Parks and Recs Department, the HEART program, and we're just covering the cost for teachers. If you have children for after school K through 6, then that gives teachers time for meetings after school, for planning after school, and those types of things. And we've invited city employees to participate in that as well.
Yeah, I understand why you're doing it. My question was, are those benefits taxable?
The value of the HEART program for a 10-month teacher, it's at $150 a month. So that's $1,500 a year for that service for one child. And that falls below the threshold to be reported. It would go on their W-2, but it's not taxable.
But what if they did that as well as the child care?
That is the childcare.
I just don't want any of the teachers to be surprised if they get a huge tax bill from these benefits.
Yeah, we've worked through this and spent some time with Mr. Ben, sort of going through those issues. So we're very comfortable with it not being taxable.
Okay.
Anyone else? Will you be voting on your revised budget at your next regular meeting, which is what, May 8th?
Well, that depends upon the state.
Or May 9th?
Yeah, it depends
Yeah.
upon the state.
I know. The state's making us all wait.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we're not into June and, before we get
Oh, man.
there, so.
Hopefully it's all good news. So, yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much. Anyone else from the school board? Anything? All right.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
We
And I just
appreciate it.
want to say, on behalf of the Stanton City Council, we truly appreciate all of the hard work that the school board puts in. You put in so many hours, a lot more time than probably folks realize. So thank you for all of your efforts. And I am very excited about our budget and that we were able to work together in the end. So thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank you for
Madam
your
Mayor.
support.
And at this time, I will adjourn the school board.
Thank you. All right. You guys can stay. Well, actually, we're going on a break. So. Okay.
Good evening. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye-bye. And with that, we are on break until 6:20. It's now 6:20. We are back from break. The next item is item 3, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Workshop. Ms. Beauregard.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to introduce again Dr. Robin Stacia, who will be walking us through this about 45-minute workshop. Dr. Stacia, I'm going to go ahead and let you get started.
All right, great. Hello, everyone. It's good to be back with you and I can't see you guys because it's so teeny, but I know you're all there. And it's good to see those of you on the Zoom as well. Leslie is going to operate these slides for me, so I'll be saying that forever. Next slide. So please excuse us as we navigate this together.
Thank you.
Great. Are there any questions before I proceed?
Any questions? I think we're ready.
Okay, great. So we'll skip this slide. All of you have talked to me, so you know who I am and you met me before. So next slide, please. So what we're going to accomplish in a rapid 45 minutes. And I apologize because we're not going to have as much time to talk. I'm going to pause a couple of points throughout the presentation and give you all a chance to make any comments, ask any questions, have any feedback. But, you know, as usual, there's probably more to share than we have time for, but our goals are on this slide that you're looking at. We really want to make sure that City Council is familiar and comfortable with talking about the kinds of terms and understanding together the kinds of constructs that this commission will be focusing on. And so that's really what today is about. Today is about going through things that you've heard before, you talk with your family and friends, but as a collective group, as a group of leaders for this city, we want you to have a shared understanding. Now, are we going to achieve that today? Likely not, but we're going to achieve a level of comfort, I hope, and transparency that as we go through this process, it will continue to deepen. Next slide. So this work is what we refer to as a leadership imperative. As leaders for the city, certainly Leslie and her team as leaders for the city government, even those folks who are leading nonprofits, who are leading in our community, various sectors, this is the kind of work that leaders have to begin to tackle and have to think about what's our role, how do we lead? And the way we do this, in particular with where you all are sitting, is through thinking about what your collective commitment is to this work and how that aligns with the city, the data that you have, your constituents, your constituency, and the kinds of issues that you're facing, your governance. So how do you align this work within the governance? And you've already done that. That's through the commission. The commission is an aspect of the city's governance. And then your personal commitment. And, you know, this is hard work to do if we don't personally have a connection to the work and we don't personally understand why it's important to our lives, to those that we care most about, to those in our community who need advocates and allies who are working on their behalf. And so that's what this leadership imperative drives. Next slide. So this imperative requires that as leaders, you make a commitment to continually working on your personal competence. I know you all are already doing that. Many of you are reading and have read many of the books that are popular and common and recommended, you know, during this very evolving and challenging time, and certainly in our you know, current context since the last 2 to 3 years. But it requires that you say to yourselves, how do I understand diversity, equity, inclusion, and any of those constructs related to my own attitudes, beliefs, my values, and my lived experiences. And sometimes we have to go back and ask ourselves, how did I learn what I now believe? And what am I doing to acquire new knowledge, to figure out what the attributes are that I want to respect and acknowledge in other people, and to figure out how you can be a better steward and a better representative. Even if you're already at a level 10, we can all continue to grow. So this requires that we continue to require knowledge, skills, and attributes that will help us to function at a higher level with diverse communities. And our communities are becoming even more diverse. I've listed a few ways in which communities are diverse. And there's even more than I could possibly list here. So what we're talking about today is starting or enhancing your journey of your own competence. Next slide. And there is a journey for this. You know, this is a diagram from the Intercultural Development Institute, which has an inventory that we can all take as individuals. I've taken this inventory. It helps us to understand where we are on the continuum of being a multicultural or intercultural person who understands and sees differences, who respects differences. You know, that saying that a lot of folks like to say is I'm colorblind is actually not what we want. We don't want you to be colorblind. Colorblind is denial. That says that there's no differences between who we are based upon our skin tone, or our ethnicity, or our race, or our gender, or any of the things that make each of us unique and interesting, but also make our lives and our lived experiences different. So we don't want denial. We don't want to be colorblind. We actually want to do our best to continue to grow and evolve on this axis up to the adaptation. And that's where we recognize that there are differences. We recognize the differences between ourselves and others. We understand the complexities of those differences. We don't always agree. We don't always feel comfortable, but we continue to work to bridge across differences. We don't, for example, ask someone who wears a hijab not to wear it, or to point at people who are wearing some type of a ceremonial or a religious garb that represents who they are, or to question why someone may or may not speak as clearly as someone who has English as a first language. So we begin to bridge across differences, and we begin to accept and to even appreciate how all of these differences, in fact, help to make our communities and our workspaces and our teams better functioning than they are. So next slide. So diversity is also, equity inclusion is also not a check the box activity. So it's not something that you do because you feel like you have to say, we've done that or we're doing it. But we do it because we recognize that it's an opportunity to really capitalize on the best of what each of us brings to the conversation. And there's a lot of data, and I have, I think later in the slide deck, some information that shares with you the business case of why this is great. I mean, McKinsey, Deloitte, Bain, you name all of our bigwig research companies, all have spent extensive amount of time looking at both national and global data that points out at how organizations perform, how cities perform, how communities, how teams are better able to perform when they are more diverse and when they are more inclusive. So checking the box prevents us really capitalizing on the advantages that a true diverse community and sensory and committees and whatever we're focusing on has to offer. And I think the next slide is in fact a video Now, this is a video from Apple, so it is not an iPhone commercial. I'm not endorsing Apple, but it gives you an idea of how a company views diversity. And I think to myself, if a company can view diversity and inclusion this way, why can't a community? So I want you to take a minute and listen to this video.
Open a door and it opens all the others. Open a mind and see what happens next. No great thing, no beautiful invention was created in a vacuum. It happens when we leave our comfort zone and come together. Embrace faiths, cultures, disabilities, differences. Embrace races, ages, ideologies, personalities, creating a tool or device nobody saw coming. Humanity is plural, not singular. The best way the world works is everybody in, nobody out. So who we're made of is everyone. Differences not just celebrated, but essential. Many more women in charge, equal pay for equal work everywhere. A new generation of Apple, more diverse than the one that came before. Open is not just who we are, but what we believe as a company. Because humanity isn't singular, it's plural. The truth is, we don't see things the same. The power is, we don't see things the same.
Next slide.
Hold on. Oops. Wait, stop. Sorry, I'm trying to get to the next slide. There we go.
So, you know, what I love about this video, and I watch it so much because I love it. These are the things that stand out for me. And then I'm going to go to you and I want to hear a couple of things or one or two that stood out for you. I love that we are unique individuals with complex personalities, experiences, and beliefs. I love the aspect that despite our differences and uniqueness, we also have much in common. And then I love that when we connect on a deeper level, we discover how much we share. This is true for a company, and this is true for a community. And I'm wondering, next slide, please. What did each of you hear? Was there something in that brief video that also speaks to what you see and what you want to see in the city of Stanton?
Any thoughts?
Well, you saw diversity for one. You saw treat everybody the same. If you do same work, pay them the same. You know, don't judge them. It's like don't judge a book by its cover. Just because they might look different doesn't mean they are different. You know, because a lot of us share a lot of the same wants and needs and desires. And I personally have been working with some Afghanis, and it's really amazing, you know, how they're not that different than, you know, anybody else. You know, their religion's different and stuff like that, but as far as what they want and do and how they work, it's, you know, it's the same. And you know, and everybody's important.
Anyone else?
This is Carolyn Dull. I can't really speak much to the video because I was hearing a double. It was playing twice. Who knows why? I was just going to ask later, could you send a link to the video and I'll watch it later?
Absolutely. We'll send a link. No problem.
Thanks.
Great.
Are there any other reactions to the video and how you all see or want to see Stanton in that video?
What I saw was a real appreciation and valuing of differences, and you know, getting away from the notion that that different means you know, it doesn't have to mean different color. It means different ways of thinking, different cultural backgrounds. So that's what I really appreciated about the video. I also had difficulty hearing, because of the same issue, the echo that we were getting. But thank you. I look forward to seeing it again.
Good. And I appreciate that as well. Thank you for that comment. I think we were hearing it in our earpiece and we were hearing it from in the room, which is why those of us on the Zoom had a little echo. Yeah. Yes. So I go ahead if there's someone else who has something to share. Absolutely.
Yes, this is Mayor Oakes. I wanted to say that I saw a lot of different looking faces. However, everyone appeared to just simply want to be happy, and they want their neighbor to be happy. They want to make a difference and contribute.
Very good. So all of these things that all of your reflections, I think, are sentiments of what we want to capture when we're focusing on diversity and inclusion. We don't want to deny or to minimize the differences that people bring, but we also want to understand that most of us have the same values. We want to have healthy families. We want to have great jobs where we feel fulfilled and we can offer and contribute. We want to live in safe neighborhoods. We want to be able to have fun time with friends. We want to have a great meal. We want to be able to share our talents and our gifts in ways that contribute to others. So when it comes down to it, our differences are significant and should be honored, as should be our common values that we often share in community. Next slide. So these conversations about diversity, race, all the isms, and we're going to go through all of them. We're going to go through all the things that are, quote, challenging in community. Despite what we just saw in the Apple video, that's our aspiration. In communities, we know that there are challenges based upon differences because people aren't often thinking about how much we can connect and how much we can advance our common work through our differences. And so these conversations have gotten to be very tense. And one of the things I asked each of you, you know, in our conversations was about, you know, what's going to be challenging about this in the city of Stanton. And it's not going to be any different than what's challenging in any city. And that's that people have had really bad experiences, quite frankly, talking about race, gender, ethnicity, religion, any differences. I can remember conversations when I was in college studying for my doctorate degree that were very challenging because the folks in the room, we weren't prepared to have these conversations. Next slide. So over the last couple of years, our country and our communities have gone through a lot. And that's a part of the reason why we're here today, is because we saw a convergence of things that came together that we just could not see and unsee. And we couldn't deny the connections. We saw COVID-19 and how our communities were disproportionately impacted by those, how we had such vulnerable pockets of citizens in our communities, and how people who we didn't think were vulnerable are in fact a couple of paychecks away from not being able to make it. We also saw some incidents that were a part of a larger picture of police murders and brutality, as many of us affirm them to be. Others questioned they were justified. That brought about tension in our community as we tried to understand tragedies, next slide, that were actually happening before our very eyes. So over the last couple of years, community and communities through everywhere have had broad and pervasive system and community disparities that they've had to deal with. Frontline workers exposed to COVID, technology challenges in communities as kids went virtual, and we really realized where we had challenges in our communities with fair access to internet, fair access to food, families who are just unable to make it without assistance. All of these things really
Dr.
pointed out to
Stasia?
us. Oh, yeah.
Robin, I apologize, but back here about a minute ago, you made a statement and your voice was going in and out a little bit.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
But,
Thank you.
well, I just
Okay.
wanted you to repeat a line. You said something about the perceived, you mentioned police
Oh,
and
well,
the,
what
and
I
the
was,
perceived, whether it's perceived brutality, and I wasn't sure what the rest of that was. because-
okay, all right. I'm gonna plug in to a different, because sometimes when I move my head, thank you for telling me that. When I have my earpieces in, if I move my head, sometimes my volume can drift off. No, I said we were faced with multiple police incidents that resulted in murder, where many of us perceive those differently. Some perceived those incidents as unjust, and others wondered whether or not there was a real cause for them. So that's what I was saying, that there was a difference in our perceptions and our understanding that created great tension in our communities. So we've had the tension of COVID-19, we've had the tension of police brutality and injustices, we've had the tension of these pervasive disparities that were highlighted during the economic challenges over the last couple of years, where families still haven't recovered from many of the economic layoffs and deaths and you name it. So what I was saying is that we've faced over the last few years significant challenges that have pointed out to us how vulnerable different communities or different aspects of our communities are. Next slide. We've also had to face together some areas that have created a divide. You know, this is a picture of a Black Lives Matter protest and the greeting of Black Lives Matter. And I know here in Atlanta, you know, there's big division about supporting Black Lives Matter, not supporting it, but supporting the issues or not supporting the issues, or what do the issues mean? And then the next slide. And on the heels of trying to understand that, we were all then faced with trying to understand another symbol of what we've come to call an insurrection that we also saw differently. And often the way we see these are different based upon, next slide, political perspectives, left or right, social justice or blue justice, racial equity, or what folks call reverse racism. Now there's tension around what people are calling critical race theory versus protest about how we teach, what words we can use, what books we can read. So it's becoming so divisive. But for cities like yours who want to aspire to what we saw in the video and want to understand how your citizenry is really thriving or struggling, you have to be able to see your way past a lot of what you're looking at on this slide now. We have to be able to see our way past the conflict and have to be able to work your way as leaders into the issues that are real, that your city has challenges or wants to conquer or wants to understand. and how your city wants to aspire to be a city that is inclusive and that honors diversity and that wants to understand, what do we need to do regarding equity? Even when there's been challenges over the last 2 years with really a larger picture and a larger understanding. So this is all to say this work is not going to be done in a vacuum. This work is going to be done within the context of this larger body of noise and concern and frustration. Yet you're choosing to do it and you have to do it. And so you have to be prepared. Next slide. So you've decided that doing nothing is not the answer. And so that's your first response. Why are we doing this? Because doing nothing is not the answer. Doing nothing isn't going to help us to create solutions for the things that many of in our community are persistently challenged with, or it isn't going to be able to help us tap into innovation in our city. It isn't going to be able to help us energize engagement in our city. Doing nothing isn't going to be able to help our city come together more as a sense of community and of team. So doing something is what you guys have decided to do. Next slide. And so now we want to talk about how do you communicate both amongst yourselves as well as with others about some of those things that really are challenging communities right now. Next slide. So we want to have some level set definitions. The first is diversity. And I asked you guys all this in our calls, define diversity, and each one of you defined it in some aspects of what you see here. And the reason I like this particular image is because we tend to look at what we see in the trees when we think of diversity. We tend to look at, someone's skin tone, what we think of their age, how their gender appears to be, although we can't tell someone's gender just by how they look, but we think we can, because if we're thinking more traditionally, we look at body size, all of these things, but there's so much more to us than what we see visually. And we don't know these other things like sexual orientation or our national origin, or our religion, our spirituality, or how we function within our culture, or our thinking styles and our way of processing information or communication, until we really create a space of safety and a space of personal interaction. And that's when we learn and we are each able to offer our greater diversity. Next slide. And so we define diversity as both demographic diversity, meaning those things that you see on this slide. And these are the ones that we typically think of when we think of diversity. We think of race and age and gender and nationality and geographic, are you North or South or Midwest or West Coast, or your faith or religion. These are important aspects of diversity. Next slide. But so are the cognitive diversity. And cognitive diversity are things about how we think, how we experience situations, how we process information, how we problem solve, how we create solutions, how effective teams work together. And I often think, I'll use myself as an example, as a psychologist, is the way that I process because it's inherent to me, or is it because I went on to become a psychologist? And I think it's a little bit of both. And so that's why we want diverse teams around the table. That's why we want to make sure that we have, in fact, embraced and created space for people to object. When we have homogeneous teams or homogeneous groups, in fact, we get often what's called groupthink. And that's where people tend to think alike and agree with one another. Next slide. And there are many, many studies that show us that when we're not tapping into our cognitive diversities, in fact, what we're tapping into is stagnation. So there's studies that show how teams that are all alike professionally, gender or age, are in fact unable to solve complex problems, as opposed to a team that is racially diverse, gender diverse, skills and interest diverse, ideas, lived experiences, solve problems twice as fast as those who come from the same background, professional skill set, and may have more similarities. Next slide. So the benefits of diversity is great. And like I said, there's numerous studies that show this. And so if this is true for teams, then we know that this is true for communities. We know that this is true for cities, that if we have a commission, if you have a committee, if you are hiring in the city, if you're putting together any type of a process, that when you have a team that is more diverse and inclusive, you're going to yield the benefits that you're seeing on this slide. You're going to yield a team that has expanded mindsets and has expanded capabilities. You're going to yield a team that has the ability to perform higher and more effectively. You're going to yield a team that's better able to problem solve. But you know what else you get? You get a group of people that are happier. All the data also tell us that when we work in more diverse and inclusive work, community, teaming situations, that the individuals themselves experience a more positive personal impact. People feel good about being able to work interculturally, cross-racially, across different disciplines. Next slide. And that, in fact, affects the way they feel. So what we have to do as a community, we usually stay up here in the surface, and these things are good. We have festivals and we have, all types of arts and crafts and vendors, and we celebrate different months and different days, but we have to really create opportunities for deep cultural understanding. We have to create opportunities for people to really get to know each other. And I do have some ideas that as you do this work, that if you're not already doing it, I'll certainly share. But we have to spend time. One of the lingering legacies of our Jim Crow era of segregation is that our communities are still relatively separate. Now they're separate often among racial lines, cultural lines, and socioeconomic lines. So that leaves us with situations where people really don't have a natural path or a natural way, other than in the workplace or other than in intentionally created experiences in community, to understand deep cultural differences and appreciate one another on a deeper level. And so this commission has an opportunity to help Stanton understand some of these deeper cultural differences and opportunities. Next slide. So I asked you guys, what are some of the strengths of Stanton? And you gave me some great strengths. You said it's our great citizenry. Every one of you said it's your great citizenry. It's hard for me to say that word. That you all come together and you make things better, that you just do, that you work across racial lines. You all said that the city is warm, has warmth and diversity, and that it's growing, that it's expanding, and that also this does create issues because as things expand, so does our minds and our hearts have to expand to push beyond what we might ordinarily do, our own comfort zone, in order to accept differences. That you guys, your city is generally friendly, particularly on one-on-one with people, that most people, no matter their politics, believe in fairness and want to do what's right. And all of you said that it's just a vibrant area, that it's a tourist attraction, it has great history, and that it's a place where people value coming. So there are a lot of strengths to Stanton. Next slide. And in Stanton, you talked about that there's a lot of diversity. So let's go into a deeper understanding real quick of what this diversity looks like. So first we have race, and we want to be comfortable talking about race. And the fact that race is really just a construct, right? I probably have more genetically in common with Brenda than I do with another Black person. Like I could maybe give Brenda a kidney, and I maybe couldn't give my brother a kidney. So the reason that we are able to call ourselves humans is because that is in fact how we are. There are no real differences in our makeup. So race is what? Race is a construct. Next slide. It is a way of identifying who we are that goes back hundreds of years. And, you know, this is the deck we're dealt with at this point. We want to believe we're all human. We want to believe we're a part of the same human race, but there are differences in who we are based upon the constructs that we've created in America and really across the world. And then these constructs have created different lived experiences and different opportunities for us based upon how, in fact, our communities and our society sees who we are according to how we are called in our racial category. This is what the U.S. Census identifies as the racial category. This is what you get to pick. Is it? If you're not there, then you got to pick 2 or more races or some other category. Write it in. But this is what you get to pick according to what we still do in our last census. So we know that we're so much more diverse than this in America, but this is what we have. Next slide. And in Virginia, you guys are a very diverse community. You are a predominantly white community, but this percentage in Virginia in the last census of 61.6% is lower than it's ever been. So you're becoming even more diverse. So those who say they're Black alone is 12%, Hispanics are 18.7%. Virginia is changing. And if Virginia is changing, Stanton is changing, or Stanton certainly has the possibility of changing as well, if that is your aspiration. So those who are 2 or more races were 10%. Now, what was interesting though about Virginia is that your under 18 years of age is declining. So either you're having less children in Virginia or families are leaving Virginia to some extent, because those who are under 18 are declining, but the adult population is increasing. And I think many of you said to me that Stanton is a retirement community, that people are moving to Stanton because it's a great place to retire. And people are moving to Virginia. People are moving to your communities from the Northeast because they are wonderful places to retire. Next slide. So I don't know what your Stanton data is, but that's something I believe you know, and that's going to be important for this commission to understand. So gender diversity, real quick, are the ways in which we identify ourselves. It is no longer male and female. And so when you hear people say, there's only 2 options, they're wrong. There are not only 2 options. So when we look at diversity and inclusion for gender, we're looking at cisgender and gender fluid and gender queer and intersex and gender nonconforming and transgender. And yes, there may be a couple of other identifiers even next year, because as people evolve and are more expressive in who they are, the ways in which we understand how we identify grows. These are self-identifiers. And so the key here is that we don't get to identify someone. They identify themselves. And we then honor and accept that identification. Next slide. Gender identity is a part of a larger spectrum of LGBTQ+. And I know many people get confused about this. I am not in any way, I will say, an expert on these acronyms, but these are the ways in which people who are within this community, and it is a community, and I put that there intentionally, it is a community of gender and sexual orientation identities. And the people in this community identify themselves in these ways and want to be able to express this identity in their workplaces, as being a citizen in their neighborhoods, without fear of being ridiculed or harmed or targeted in any way. And as a city, we have to honor and respect that. We have to create cities that are safe for people to express themselves in whatever way. Next slide. Religion, we've talked about this a lot. Religious diversity, immigration is, I know, a big diversity within both Stanton and in your neighboring communities. Next slide. I'm going to go real fast. Disability. This is something that's very important, and I will tell you is often overlooked. In fact, is one of our largest diversities. 19% of the US population has some type of a disability, and we can't always see the disability. And this is where as individuals who may not have a disability always fall short, because our assumption is that if we can't see it, it doesn't exist. When there are many physical and mental disabilities that limit a person's movement, senses, and activities, their physical learning, their language, their behavior, that we cannot see. And so if we are being truly inclusive, then we have to always ask and allow people to, again, self-identify in terms of what their disability might be, and then tell us what would be helpful for them in order to be able to navigate and to be as included as possible. Next slide. So there's many considerations. I've given you guys a little assignment here for you to do in your own personal time. And that's to think about how you first learned about all of the things that I just shared. And what did you learn? And how has your understanding stayed the same, or how has it changed? And what do you need to do to continue to move forward in being a more inclusive-minded leader? Next slide. So inclusion is this act of empowering the participation in the true belonging of people who are typically not around the table. So if you think about how do we create space for folks who don't typically sit at the table, and that might be space for seniors who, quite frankly, we are not a country that really honors our seniors in their wisdom. That might be a space for someone who is differently able. I work with lots of boards, and there is never a board where a person is on the board who has self-identified in some way a handicap. So understanding how we need to be inclusive is critical to creating a community that feels a sense of belonging. Next slide. Which gets us to belonging. So belonging is something that people desire. Welcoming is something that we offer. And that's how you think about those terms. I desire to feel a sense of belonging when I walk into a room. I span that room and I look for people who are women. I look for women who are African-American. I look for people who are around my age. I look for folks who are from my region. We all are seeking for this kind of common connection. And when we don't find it, we still want and deserve a social connectedness to the group. So I still want Carolyn to say hello to me and welcome, Robin. I'm glad you're here. I still want to know that even though I don't see myself reflected in this room, I belong here and I am welcomed here. And so those are the things that we have to really unequivocally achieve within a community. Next slide. Otherwise, what we get is people who show up, but I was told, I actually listened to a podcast where she said she was always invited, but she was never included. And that is a real visualization where we invite people to be around the table, but in fact, their voices are not included. And this gets us to equity. Equity is how do we eliminate barriers that prevent the opportunity for advancement of people who are typically not around the table, or people who are invited but never included. So there's no leadership opportunity. There's no way for them to serve. There's never an ask for their voice. Their opinions are not sought or mattered. When they speak, they are not heard. Or equity is about, next slide, removing barriers And this is two images, and Leslie, you have to help me because I think I got to stop in a minute. This is two images that help you to think about equity. Equality, everybody has a bike. That's invited to ride, but you can't really ride. Equity, everybody has the bike that they need, the bike that fits them. And on the right, you see several levels. The right is something that cities, municipalities, government, and councils can do, because the right talks about structure. If you look at how the tree is leaning, this diagram talks to us that sometimes creating equity means that we actually change policies, practices, systems, and structures so that the barriers and the persistent challenges that individuals have experienced are removed. So it's not just giving a person a bike, but it's fixing a system. It's fixing a structure. And that's what the slide, the image on the right depicts. Next slide. So next slide. Let's talk real quick about some of the barriers that we have internally. Implicit bias. I know you guys all know about this. You know of the term. We've got lots of examples of implicit bias. The bottom line is don't deny that you have it, because you do. I do. We all do. We all have bias. We all have bias and it's unconscious. We all have bias and it's involuntary. And we all have bias because we're all susceptible. We're susceptible to the media, to false information about other people, to stereotypes about people, to our lack of knowledge and familiarity with folks, to our own isolationists and our own internal culture. So there's many things that put us at a disadvantage to not really understanding and respecting and honoring the differences that people bring. Next slide. These biases are also sometimes a part of our isms, and our isms are those like sexism, genderism, ageism, LGBTQ uncomfortableness. So, you know, they come together in very confusing ways. So sometimes it's a bias in that, oh, you know, I don't understand this person. I think this about this particular culture. And sometimes it's a real hardened, racist, sexist attitude or belief that allows us, when we have power, to create disadvantages for those who have access to services. And so we have to be very clear about, when you have power, how you understand your bias. Because if your bias is really something that you are acting on and something that is creating prejudice and stereotypes, it leads to discrimination, and it can lead to devaluing and disempowering and differently allocating opportunities and resources. And sometimes people know they're doing it and sometimes they don't. But we as leaders have to become alert, proactive, and you have to know when you're crossing the line. And teams like your council have to be prepared to say to one another, okay, that was at the line. We're not going to go there. We're not going to disadvantage a community, or this is what this law is going to do, or this is what this policy will do, how it will negatively impact single moms or the elderly or seniors or people without transportation. We have to think deeply about how these things have real ramifications. Next slide. So I've given you a real quick fire hose of information. Now the commission is going to be here to help you get some work done. Next slide. So the commission is going to be here to listen, to understand the voices. They're going to be here to understand the power that people want to have in their lives, the ways in which they want to be included, and how belonging is important to those in your community. They're going to listen to diverse citizens' lived experiences. They're going to look at data to understand the root causes of disparity. So why does one group of citizens fare different than another? Why does one zip code? And in Atlanta, we have this study they do each year that tells you the life expectancy of Atlantans based upon your zip code. And it boils down to poverty, race, and opportunities. They're going to challenge assumptions that have been in place in the city of Stanton, and they're going to seek better answers. Assumptions like, old people really don't want to do better, or old people don't want opportunities, or these meritocracy types of assumptions. Well, if people just worked hard, they do better. Well, that's an assumption, because sometimes people are working twice as hard and they're not doing well. Some people are working 3 jobs. They're working really hard. So that might not be the right answer. So they're going to center on coming up with better answers. They're going to center the diverse voices for problem solving and for problem identification. And then they're going to seek to understand ways in which the traditional Stanton dynamics need to be addressed in order to really create fair and just, inclusive communities. Next slide. So they're going to deal with these concepts of disparities and inequities. The definitions are here for you, and I just went through them. I talked about them in my summary there. That disparities are disproportionate outcomes, typically negative, based upon race, age, gender, mental health, cognitive, physical ability, any differences, and why those differences fare in a negative or a different way. And inequities are the ways in which individual groups experience more challenges and disadvantages. And that particularly when those are not because of their own doing, when they are related to social conditions, process, policies, or situations that are beyond their control. Next slide. So this group is going to focus on those bodies of work. They're going to understand all of those definitions that I just shared with you. They're going to hear those definitions. They're going to learn how to integrate them into their conversations with those who they talk to. And they're going to make sense of what's going well and what needs to be improved. But most importantly, what your citizens want to solve, what problems your citizens want to address, and what they want the council to focus on. So that's the end of the presentation. We've got a couple of minutes for questions. And so I'd love to hear anything you have to say or any discussion.
Great. Are there any questions? We're actually running a bit over.
I know.
So are there, no, great information, Dr. Stacia. Thank you so much for the presentation. This is valuable information. So are there any questions? All right. Hearing none, thank you so much. You've given us our homework and we're gonna take this all in, and we, again, cannot thank you enough for helping us navigate setting up this commission. So.
All right, and thank you. And thank you for your patience as I ran a little long. I
No,
wanted
no,
to get
not at all.
core
Like I said,
information out to you today.
absolutely. Well worth it. Well worth
All right,
it. So
thank you
again,
so
thank
much.
you.
All right, bye-bye.
All right. So that takes us on to roll call. We are now at the portion of the agenda called roll call. Roll call allows each council member an opportunity to bring forth matters for staff follow-up, either during the same meeting or at a future work session, a regular meeting, if additional time is required to respond to a council member's inquiry. All right, I will start with council member. Do you want to go first? Terry Holmes?
Well, today I was at the tourism meeting and actually things are buzzing along. The biggest problem still is not enough employees, but you know, even though a lot of us are closed a day or two, we're still beating our figures from 2019, which is great. You know, I hate to think what we could do if we had more help, but it was a good meeting, and they're working on a new web page for this tourism, and that should be up and running hopefully in a little while. But
Sounds like good information. Thank you for sharing. Councilor Darby?
I don't have anything.
Okay. Vice Mayor Robertson?
Nothing tonight.
Counselor
Nothing tonight,
Clappy?
no.
All right. Counselor Mead?
Yes, I had a question from a citizen about the fact that there are no minutes from the February 10th, 2022 meeting posted on the website. And I know that those minutes were approved in the March 10th, 2022 meeting. Mr. Kesker, do you see that on the website?
Ms. Mead, I saw your email and I looked on the website and I noticed that as well. And I do apologize. We'll get those posted as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Counselor Dole?
Nothing from me.
All right, and nothing for me as well. So with that, I will call the work session for the Stanton City Council adjourned. We will be back at 7:30 for the regular meeting. As mayor of the city of Stanton, I call the April 14th, 2022 regular city council meeting to order at 7:30 PM. And the first item is the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you would like to, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. He was on the floor.
All right, the next item is the invocation and moment of silence. And tonight it is Counselor Carolyn Dole's turn. Counselor Dole.
Thank you. I would like for us to have a moment of silence, but first I'd like to tell a little story that I heard just today from a lady who was born under the communist regime in Czechoslovakia, and how her brother escaped and didn't come back. And so the Russians said the family had to be punished. The father was fired from his job as the director of an agricultural school. Her mom, who was a teacher, could no longer teach in the city. And this woman wanted to go into medicine and study medicine, and they would not let her. She said she thought she would live and die under that regime. But a miracle happened, and they became a republic. And she said, democracy is the most important thing. Ukraine is fighting for all of us right now, and they're very supportive of the Ukraine effort, and they're sending what they have, tanks and anything they can supply. But she said the most important thing is democracy, and you cannot afford to lose it. So because we have such challenging times now, I'd like for us to take a moment of silence and reflect on how lucky we are to have a democracy and how important it is for us to keep it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up is the mayor's report. I have a couple of proclamations. And the first one I would like to read is the Fair Housing Month proclamation. City of Stanton, Virginia proclamation, Fair Housing Month. Whereas the Fair Housing Act, enacted on April 11th, 1968, enshrined into federal law the goal of eliminating racial segregation and ending housing discrimination in the United States. And whereas the Fair Housing Act prohibits discrimination in housing based on race, color, religion, sex, familiar status, national origin, and disability, and commits recipients of federal funding to affirmatively further fair housing in their communities. And whereas the city of Stanton is committed to the mission and intent of the Fair Housing Act to provide fair and equal housing opportunity for all, and whereas our social fabric, the economy, health, and environment are strengthening in diverse, inclusive communities. And whereas housing is a critical component of family and community health and stability. And whereas ongoing education, outreach, and monitoring are key to raising awareness of fair housing principles, practices, rights, and responsibilities. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by Stanton City Council that the month of April 2022 is hereby designated as Fair Housing Month in the city of Stanton, an inclusive community committed to fair housing and the promotion of appropriate activities by private and public entities to provide and advocate for equal housing opportunities for all residents and prospective residents of Stanton. Approve this 14th day of April 2022, Andrea W. Oaks, Mayor. And it's my understanding that Brad Arrowwood, the Chief Operations Officer at the Stanton Augusta Waynesboro Habitat for Humanity, is here, along with Wanda Stevens, the Executive Director of the Stanton Redevelopment and Housing Authority, to accept the resolution, excuse me, the proclamation. So, yeah, come on up. Come on up. Hey, both of you go. Yeah.
Get your picture to you.
Wanda Stevens, and what I'd like to do is say thank you to the mayor and the city council for taking the time to do this. And April, yes, is Fair Housing Month, but we at the Housing Authority would like to say that 367-24 is fair housing, and it is a right, and it's everyone's responsibility to make sure that fair housing is implemented with friends, family, and if you see that it may not be, it's up to you to step up, talk about it, and direct people to those places that can help them. And thank you, and we appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm Brad Arrowwood. I'm with Habitat for Humanity. Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of council for the proclamation of this year. And as Wanda said, it is all year. We're striving to create more workforce housing for the members of the community, Stanton, Augusta, and Waynesboro as well. We're doing everything we can to provide everyone. We believe it's the critical foundation for a family to have good, affordable housing. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to say thank you to both of you for everything that you do to help create diversity and equity within our community and giving everyone the chance at having a home. Fair housing should be, Wanda, like you said, it should be a right for everyone. So thank you. And if y'all want to stay, you're more than welcome. If you need to go home, by all means, feel free to leave. I'll leave that up to you. All right, the next proclamation is Child Abuse Prevention Month. I'm getting ready to read the fair housing over again. I tell you, it was that good. It was worth reading a second time. All right, City of Stanton, Virginia proclamation, Child Abuse Prevention Month. Whereas, regardless of who they are or the circumstances of their birth, all children have the right to safe, secure, and supportive environments free from abuse and neglect. And whereas child abuse is one of our nation's most serious public health problems, with scientific studies documenting the link between child abuse and neglect in a wide range of medical, emotional, psychological, and behavioral disorders. And whereas children are the foundation of a substantial and prosperous society, and our priorities as a state and nation is built on a foundation of healthy child development. And whereas the majority of child abuse cases stem from situations and conditions that are preventable in an engaged and supportive community. And whereas creating communities where families can access an array of supports and resources to address the social, emotional, and physical health of their children is the best way to combat child abuse. And whereas effective child abuse prevention programs succeed because of partnerships created among Shenandoah Valley Social Services, the Valley Children's Advocacy Center, Blue Ridge Court-appointed special advocates, the Central Shenandoah Valley Office on Youth, schools, faith communities, civic organizations, law enforcement agencies, and the business community. And whereas displaying a pinwheel during the month of April will serve as a positive reminder that together we can prevent child abuse and neglect, and by doing so, keep children safe. Now, therefore, it be proclaimed by Stanton City Council that the month of April 2022 is hereby designated as Child Abuse Prevention Month in the city of Stanton. And Stanton City Council calls upon all citizens, individuals, and through organizations with which they are affiliated to increase their participation in our efforts to support families, thereby preventing child abuse and strengthening the communities in which we live. Adopted this 14th day of April 2022, Andrea W. Oaks, Mayor. And members of the Blue Ridge Stop Child Abuse Now, Meredith Capel, the Family Service Coordinator with the Office on Youth, Maggie Dotson with Court-appointed Special Advocates, Amanda DePoy with the Valley Community Service Board. It's my understanding you guys are here, and if you would like to accept the proclamation, come on to the podium, please.
Oh, we don't.
Okay, if you would like more than one copy, you would be happy.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council members, for having us tonight. I first want to give a moment for each of those that are with me to introduce themselves. My name is Leanna Headley, and I am the Blue Ridge CASA Court-appointed Special Advocates intern from James Madison University.
Hi, I'm Amanda DePoy, representing Valley Community Services Board.
I am Meredith Keppel, representing the Office on Youth.
And I'm Cody Hargrove, representing the Valley Children's Advocacy Center. So for some quick local data and statistical highlights, every 6 minutes, a child is born in the state of Virginia. In the fiscal year 2021, there were 1,422 accepted referrals of child abuse or neglect in Waynesboro, Stanton, and Augusta counties. In Stanton specifically, there were 339 accepted referrals, 118 of those were investigations, and 70 were founded. Currently, there are 132 children in foster care in Stanton, Augusta, and Waynesboro. 43 of those children are in Stanton. There are currently 51 approved foster homes through the Department of Social Services. Blue Ridge Court-appointed Special Advocates worked with 50 children in Waynesboro, Stanton, and Augusta in 2021. Valley Children's Advocacy Center conducted 236 forensic interviews in 2021, and the Office on Youth provided parenting support to 175 parents. Evidence shows that children's early experiences impact them throughout life, both positively and negatively. Children raised in safe, stable, and nurturing relationships and environments are more likely to enjoy good physical and mental health and succeed academically and socially. Children who grow up happy and healthy also go on to contribute economic prosperity for everyone. When we invest in healthy child development, we are also investing in community. Unfortunately, children are sometimes exposed to extreme and sustained stress like abuse or neglect. which can undermine a child's development. Valley's CSB Prevention Services Department offers Understanding Adverse Childhood Experience trainings both locally and participates in statewide virtual training collaboratives. Between April 1st, 2021 and March 30th, 2022, Prevention Services was involved in training 390 people in understanding ACEs, or adverse childhood experiences. In 2008, Prevent Child Abuse America introduced the pinwheel as the new national symbol for child abuse prevention through Pinwheels for Prevention. By its nature, the pinwheel represents a whimsy and childlike notion. Yes, as you each have one. In essence, it has come to serve as the physical embodiment or the reminder of the great childhoods we all want for children. Local pinwheel gardens are established in front of the Waynesboro and Stanton libraries, as well as the Augusta County, Fisherville, and Churchville location libraries. They are also in front of the Shenandoah Valley Department of Social Services, Valley Children's Advocacy Center, Embrace, the Yancey Building in Waynesboro, and at all of the local elementary schools. We also have some events scheduled for the month, which included April 1st, which was Wear Blue Day, but we encourage you guys to wear blue every day this month, or especially on Fridays. April 1st through the 30th, we have a Let's Chalk About Prevention competition where we encourage people to create bright and fun colored chalk creations and submit them. You can pick up chalk at DSS or at some other local locations. And then on April 30th, we have Party for Prevention, which is a family day at Klein's Dairy Bar in Stanton, where we will have blue ice cream for children and booths from all of the local agencies, as well as they will be picking the winner of the chalk competition. In addition, Valley Children's Advocacy Center has a month-long campaign to support child abuse prevention. And just as a reminder to the community, together we can prevent child abuse because childhood really does last a lifetime. We thank you for proclaiming April as Child Abuse Prevention Month in our community.
So if you've been noticing the pinwheels around Stanton and Waynesboro, now you know. Now you know why. Thank you. Thank you for everything that you do for the community. I mean, our children are our number one asset that we have in our city of Stanton, Augusta County, Waynesboro, frankly, the world. I mean, our children have to be protected, and you're doing everything you can to educate, prevent, but also to heal. So thank you. And both of these proclamations are very worthy. So I'm very proud that I was able to read both of them. All right, so the next item. I want to take a moment to recognize Janet Ewing, Associate Professor of Business Administration at Mary Baldwin University, and the 10 Mary Baldwin University student participants in the Volunteer Income Tax Assistant VITA program this year, who offered their time, expertise to assist residents of Stanton and the surrounding community with their income tax returns. The City of Stanton thanks you all for the service that you provide for Stanton and the surrounding areas. Professor Ewing, would you like to come to the podium, please? I'm sorry, I do not have a proclamation for you.
I'd like to ask the students to come up front, please. And Madam Mayor, City Council, and all members of the Stanton community and the broader community, if anyone's here from any of the Saul localities, we do provide tax service for Stanton, Augusta County, and Waynesboro. We do that at Booker T Community Center. We just left Booker T and came straight here tonight. We don't need a proclamation because our proclamation is our citizens that we serve. And these students this year have done approximately 150 returns for citizens in this area.
That's great.
They have kept in this community over $300,000. Because the services they do are free. So that means our clients are not going to tax services to have their taxes done. And that also includes the amount of refunds and credits, education credits, child tax credits that they're able to file for their clients. They've spent 60 hours, and that is in their study of tax law and code of conduct, as well as in their volunteer hours. So each one of them have put in approximately 60 hours for this initiative. This is about the 12th year that Mary Baldwin students have done this. And these 10 students were outstanding. And I would just like each one of them to introduce themselves and maybe say just a quick word, maybe what class you are, or how many years you've done taxes, one thing that the citizens might find interesting. Nate, if we can start with you.
I'm Nate Cruitt. I'm a senior at Mary Baldwin.
Could you go up to the podium? I'm sorry to ask. So folks,
Thank
I'm
you.
sure, just really putting you all on the spot now. Apologize.
I'm Nate Cruitt. I'm a senior at Mary Baldwin, and I've done VITA for 2 years.
Hi, I'm Orsalis. I'm also a senior at Mary Baldwin University, and I've been also doing taxes for 2 years.
Hi, my name is June Schlereth. I'm also a senior at Mary Baldwin University, and this was my 4th tax season.
Wow.
Hello, I'm Kat. This was my first year working with VITA, and it was a lot of fun.
Hi, I'm Kensley Smith, and this is my first year doing taxes, and I'm a senior at Mary Baldwin.
I'm Gabby Cash. I'm a freshman at Mary Baldwin, and this was my first year doing taxes for VITA.
You'll be doing it for the next 3 years too, right?
My name is Nicole. I'm a sophomore at Mary Baldwin, and this is my first year doing taxes with VITA.
Hi, I'm Desiree. I'm a senior at Mary Baldwin, and this was also my first year of doing taxes at VITA.
My name is Kosat Austin. I'm a senior this year. This was my first year with VITA, and just something quick to note too. I'm commissioning into the United States Navy as an officer after graduation, so I just thought to mention that.
We have one student, Brooke Anders, who could not be here tonight. She's a senior. It's her 2nd year. She has kidney stones. So, but I want to be on record that she was a very active participant and she's a senior.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Any of you are local? You are? Maybe you can apply for a job here.
And I have a question. Professor Ewing, how long have you been preparing taxes?
A long time.
Oh, sure.
Stop, folks.
Get that wide angle.
Uh-huh. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great job. Again, thank you, because you are providing a much needed service for the city of Stanton, and you're also learning something in the process. So it's a win-win. We just truly appreciate Mary Baldwin University. You were part of the Stanton family. So thank you. And if you would like to stay, feel free. If you would like to go back to the dorms, again, feel free. No obligation. Of course, you might want to ask Professor Ewing first before you leave. All right. I'm just going to mention some events that I attended. I will not go into a lot of details just because we have a full agenda. I attended the Shenandoah Valley Workforce Meeting. I attended the ribbon cutting for the F.E.N. Johnson Ribbon Cutting over at Ebenezer. I attended the Jones Funeral Home and the Mount Zion Masons, the Masons chapter ribbon cutting this past Saturday. I also attended the Salvation Army Easter egg hunt. I think they ended up with about 200 kids at that particular Easter egg hunt. That was very successful. I attended the EDA forum, the West End Business Association meeting, the corridor overlay workshop. And I'm sure I'm missing some other activities, but I want to be able to give my fellow council members time to discuss any activities they participated in or any comments they would like to make. So any additional items by members of council?
This is Brenda Mead.
Councilor Mead.
I just want to recognize some of the really incredible people in our Stanton City Schools community. First of all, Dante Montague, who was promoted to be assistant principal at Stanton High School, and he'll assume those responsibilities, I believe, for the next school year. He is, I believe, the first African-American to be promoted into a position, an assistant principal position, since the schools were integrated. At the integration, one member of the African-American community who is already in a position of leadership was brought into the city schools, but Dante is really in this new role making history, and I think that's terrific. I also want to recognize 3 city school staff and teachers who've been awarded Dauburn Awards by the Community Foundation, the Central Blue Ridge. And I say that they were awarded those distinctions. It was actually people in the community who nominated them, and the Community Foundation that recognized them for their achievements. And those folks are Melody Puffenbarger, Dr. Jalissa Wolf, and Ms. Samantha Starrett. And I think though they are all a huge credit to our Stanton City Schools.
All right, thank you. Anyone else?
Madam Mayor,
Councilor Claffey.
2 weeks ago, we had a very successful joint meeting with the EDA and City Council at the Blackburn Inn, and it was well received, and I thought we covered a lot of great information. We could have gone on past 2 hours, but that was all the time we had. And it was a nice event. And there was the one thing that came out, there's something posted on the webpage if you want to check it out as to all the videos that were shown that night. But also, if you have any questions about Stanton Crossings and what the EDA is doing, contact Billy Vaughn in his office, because they're more than willing to give the information, and they had a lot of great information to share that night. So I really urge everybody to check that website out. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to take a moment to recognize Chairman Kenneth Venable of the Stanton City School Board. Thank you for joining us tonight, Chairman Venable. So. All right, moving on to the next item, approval of minutes. I'll entertain a motion to approve the work session and regular meeting minutes of March 24th, 2022.
Madam Mayor,
Councilor Claffey.
I move that we approve the minutes from the work session and regular meeting of March 24th, 2022.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Madam Mayor,
Vice Mayor Robertson.
I'll second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Kessinger, please call the roll.
Mayor Oakes,
Aye.
Ms. Mead,
Abstain, I was not present.
Mr. Holmes,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Robertson,
Aye.
Ms. Dull,
Aye.
Ms. Darby,
Aye.
Mr. Claffey.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you. That takes us on to the regular meeting. And our first item is item A, a recognition of Cynthia Easterling for years of service to the city of Stanton.
I'd like to introduce John Glover and Cynthia Easterling to the podium, but John is going to talk about Cynthia in a very
Come on
nice-
up,
well, I
John.
don't mean talk about
Give
her.
us the scoop.
Give
company, it'll be good
praise Cynthia and all the work she did for the city for all those years.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Leslie, everyone. It's a real privilege to be able to do this tonight. Cynthia served the city for, and I mean served the city for 28 plus years. I don't say serve lightly. She had a very tough job. She came to join our family, our work family, about 20 years ago, a little bit less than 20. First met her at the water utility counter, and she dealt with some pretty tough situations there, as you may guess. So that's how I first got to know her, was when she was, because I walked past there, I don't know, 20, 30 times a day probably. So I got to see her in action. So when our position opened up as a property maintenance inspector, she was a perfect candidate for that. And she joined our work family. Cynthia has served the city with grace, kindness, and caring.
Diligence. Humor.
You should take over
For 20 years. And we all miss her very much around the office. So again, it's a great honor to recognize her tonight.
Aw.
Wait, say something if you'd
Oh,
like
we
to.
want some words.
Go ahead, Cynthia.
your turn.
It's your turn.
Yes. It has been an honor to serve the citizens of Stanton. And I do mean serve, because that's what I did. I served. I served with or at least I tried to serve with a humble heart. And I tried to serve with humor. She looks at John. Even when, and it was a difficult job. And, but laughter is good for the soul. And so even during the hard cases and the hard times, I still try to do it with some humility and serve with humor. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to serve. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Thank you. Cynthia is still serving. She was at all the ribbon cuttings that I attended. Now, you're a member of the Stanton Augusta County African American Research Society.
Yes.
So you're still serving and working hard for
I
Stanton,
am.
and we appreciate it.
I
Thank
am.
you.
Thank you. Thank
Well,
you.
I have a certificate of appreciation that I'd like to read. The City of Stanton, Virginia presents this certificate of appreciation to Cynthia L. Easterling in appreciation of your contributions to the betterment of the city of Stanton. The city hereby awards this honor for over 28 years of outstanding service to the leaders, employees, and citizens of the city of Stanton. Signed, Andrea W. Oakes, Mayor. So I'm going to bring this down for you, and we're going to
Thank
get a
you.
picture. And oh, it's sad to see you go, but we know that you're going to be back giving John a hard time.
I already have.
I forgot to mention Billy Vaughn wanted to be here, but he had a conflict tonight, so he could not be here. So. Okay.
That's lovely. Congratulations. Thank you for your service.
Okay, the next item is item B, a public hearing and consideration of an amendment to chapter 18.125, minimum off-street parking requirements of Title 18 zoning of the Stanton City Code to allow off-street parking in certain situations to be exempted from the sealed surface requirement. Ms. Beauregard.
Rodney Rhodes, our senior planner, will walk us through this item.
Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Oakes, City Council members. Before I go over this briefing, I would like to add on to what was just said about Cynthia. For the past 5 years, I had the privilege of having an office directly across from her. I mean, just a matter of, 6 feet. And Cynthia, I really miss your laugh. Before you tonight is a zoning text amendment regarding our requirement for a sealed surface. The zoning code requires that of all parking spaces. However, there are a few unique circumstances where there's a business that is not an everyday, every week type business. It's a real hardship and a very expensive undertaking for a business that doesn't have a whole lot of traffic on a regular basis. And a proposal came before us a few months ago regarding, basically a wedding venue type place that, it would be outdoors, under tents. Obviously, that would be seasonal, and they wanted to utilize an existing gravel parking lot. However, our zoning code would not allow that. But we thought on cases like that, maybe the zoning code should. So staff drafted this amendment after getting authorization from the Planning Commission. And I would note that this amendment provides that the zoning administrator may approve an exception to the surface requirement for any use which uses intermittent parking. And we define intermittent parking as parking which does not occur on a year-round weekly basis. And I would note that it's important that the zoning administrator may approve that exception, because if someone comes before the city and says, I want to open up a convenience store 51 weeks out of the year, and I want this exception. If the zoning administrator using good judgment would say, no, you're trying to circumvent the ordinance and only allow it when it is truly warranted. So this proposed amendment has several conditions that staff recommends would go along with it. Basically noting that all the spaces would have to be marked. They would have to be maintained, even though they may be of a gravel surface, they would still have to be maintained. Direct access to, it would not have direct access to public right of way. So there would need to be at least a 30-foot area of pavement or some concrete or some surface before you went onto the public highway from a gravel parking lot. The parking lot would still have to meet all the landscape requirements of our zoning code and site plan requirements. And it also specifies that this exception would be for cases where the parking is on the site with the use that it serves. It wouldn't be for an off-site parking arrangement. This also provides a blanket exception for uses meeting the definition of agritourism as is defined in the Virginia code. The example that comes to me is Stanton is unique. We have 5 square miles that are in agriculture use. That is very unique, at least in Virginia cities. What if someone in an agricultural district wanted to have a pick your own? Think of a fall festival where you go and pick your own pumpkins. You go on a hay ride and you go through a corn maze. It doesn't seem right that we would require a parking lot for such a limited use. So that has also been added to this. So the Plan Commission conducted a public hearing on March 17th, 2022. One person spoke in favor of the amendment, and on a 5-0 vote, the commission unanimously voted to recommend approval of the amendment. I'll be glad to take any questions you may have at this time or after you conduct the public hearing.
All right. Any questions?
This is
Yes,
Brenda.
Rodney.
Councilor Claffey?
I was trying to figure out where it'd come into play, and I thought of the old Lehigh practice field on Churchville Avenue down in front of the park entrance, where Shannon Arts occasionally uses that for parking for their events up in the auditorium, the old auditorium. And I was wondering, like this law number 1 that says shall be marked with concrete, parking blocks, landscape timbers, rail use, railroad ties, and they have to be numbered. And do you want to do that in a situation like that where, you know, it's a field that kids can play on, and you don't want to put landscape timbers out there in the middle of it with numbers on them? You want to leave it open for it to be accessible the other 50 weeks out of the year, except for the couple of nights that they're using it. So is this going to put more restrictions on someone like that? I know you're trying to make things easy, but are we making it easy or are we making it more complicated?
Well, right now, they do not have that option.
But
To
they're
have,
using it, but they have-
that's a unique situation. I'd be glad to talk to you about that particular property and what was approved many years ago regarding that. But that's a
But would
unique
that be
situation.
grandfathered in?
I'd rather not go into details on that in public, sir. If you can get my drift on that, sir.
I want to get, I want
For
to
the
get in that
benefit,
conversation.
for the benefit of the property owner, I'd rather not make that public. But getting back to your point, I believe you need to have the parking spaces marked in such a way that, you know, people that are utilizing it would know where to park and have some organized arrangement of the parking as opposed to just helter-skelter type parking in a field.
How would they mark it with like chalk or?
No, sir, not for these type of, that would not stay, you know, you can't paint on gravel, you can't put chalk on gravel, it would not stay. So it would need to be something that would designate the block, the parking space. As Councilmember Claffey mentioned, the ordinance says, you know, parking blocks, landscape timbers, railroad ties, something similar to that.
Councilor Meade?
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Rhodes, is there any other surface coverage that is used besides gravel for these temporary lots or intermittent lots?
Certainly there are. It could be structured turf or something like that.
Okay.
But yeah, the gravel is the one that comes to mind, but no, that doesn't have to be the only type of surface.
Well, I think this is beneficial for stormwater management. Wouldn't it be that you'd be reducing a requirement for an impervious surface for a lot like this and replacing it with a surface that water could penetrate and soak into the ground?
Absolutely. That's another benefit of this proposed amendment.
And you mentioned a special designation for agritourism business. I'm sure you're familiar with what used to be an annual event out on Bell's Lane at one of the farms called Kites and Critters. Would that be an example of the agritourism exception? Because I know they didn't put parking spots and spaces, marked spaces and that sort of thing. It was literally parking out in a field.
I'm not familiar with that. You said it's an annual event.
It used to be.
But certainly this would come under that. And this is exactly what this amendment is supposed to address. And those, as far as exempting the agritourism businesses, that they would be parking in the field. It would have to be any kind of, not even a gravel parking lot.
Great, thank you.
So that would apply to the example you gave earlier concerning the pick your own pumpkin. If
That's
that were-
correct. Yes.
Are you going to hit up that pick your own pumpkin festival? I like the idea.
Yeah. And I'm sorry to say I have no particular businesses that are proposing that at this time, but just to let you know that this came up about one particular business, but we believe that it could benefit others.
Okay, all right. Are there any other questions, comments by council members? Okay, so this is a public hearing. I have a statement written up by Mr. Blair for me to read. In a moment, I will open up the public hearing. It is a time that council sets aside to hear from citizens and others about a specific topic. We ask that you please give your name, your address, and then keep your remarks at 5 minutes or less. When you reach the 5-minute time limit, I will let you know that your time limit has expired. For our Zoom participants, please raise your hand now if you wish to speak on this particular public hearing. If you raise your hand during this public hearing, you will also be able to raise your hand during the council meeting for other public hearings and matters of the public. And please keep your comments to 5 minutes as well. Once everyone who wishes to speak has had an opportunity, I will then close the public hearing out. So this means when I bang the gavel, I will accept folks from the audience to be able to come to the podium to speak. If you can give your name, your address, keep your comments at 5 minutes or less. And then we will go to the citizens on Zoom, and we'll just go back and forth to the live audience and then to Zoom. Once the public hearing has concluded, I'll bang the gavel. That'll be the end of the public hearing, and I will call for the vote. So with that, the public hearing is now open. Would anyone from the audience care to speak?
Hi, it's me again. It's Dr. Mary Miller. I live at 471 Albemarle Avenue across from the property we just talked about. I talked on March 24th about thinking, and I want to talk a little bit more about thinking because I think it's all something we all do. So it is the love of children and the recognition that the excellence of their education that will make Stanton stand out above all other cities. Many of us stayed here in this room until 10:45 on the night of March 24th.
Okay, I'm gonna stop you. Is this concerning the parking?
No.
Okay, can you hold your thoughts until matters from the public? Because this is just concerning the issue concerning parking.
Well, I can address that because I
So-
live across the street from there.
Okay,
And
okay, that's fine.
Whenever they have the parking, they have a light, so the whole area is lit up for people that come. And they usually, I think they always have someone that directs parking. I live across the street and it has never been a problem in any way.
Okay, thank you. And just stay with us and you can speak under matters from the public. All right, anyone on Zoom concerning this public hearing? Okay. Welcome, Mr. Fossa.
My name is Albino Albert Fossa. I live at 401 Bowling Street, Stanton. First of all, I want to say this. I don't see too many teachers here tonight. So obviously you have reacted to their response. For that, I thank you all because they are the backbone really of your city.
Okay.
They take care of your children and they make the best out of them.
Okay, are you gonna
Okay.
talk about parking, Mr. Fossa?
I thank you for that. Secondly, I have some problems. You have diversity. You've been working on
Okay,
diversity. and
Mr.
inclusion.
Fossa, this is concerning the public hearing with the parking.
Oh,
So can you
that's
hold
all
your?
it's about?
Yes, yes, sir. If you can
Oh.
hold your thoughts till the very
Oh.
end,
Well, then I would say this. I know you will do the right thing. Okay?
Thank
That's
you.
all I can say.
All right.
Because I'm not a parking person. I try not to park too often in Stanton. I
All
stay
right.
out of the way from it.
All right, well, hang in there and then you can come back under matters from the public. So thank you.
Okay. Let me know when it's something.
Yes, sir.
different.
I'll give you the thumbs up. Yes, sir.
All right. And also one other thing. I want to congratulate Cynthia Easterly. I mean, she's tried to do a very fine job and I'm sure she's going to enjoy her retirement.
Oh, I'm sure. No doubt. No doubt. All right, Mr. Kessiker, do we have anyone on Zoom? All right. Would anyone else from the audience like to speak concerning this public hearing? The public hearing is now closed. I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor Oakes.
Counselor, I'm not going to say Claffey, Darby.
I move that council adopt the ordinance and approve the amendment to the zoning code as recommended by the planning commission.
All right, there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
And I'll second it. It's Terry Holmes.
All right, Counselor Holmes is second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Kessinger, please call the roll.
Mayor Oakes,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Robertson,
Aye.
Ms. Mead,
Aye.
Mr. Holmes,
Aye.
Mr. Claffey,
No.
Ms. Dull,
Aye.
Ms. Darby.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you. That takes us on to item C, a public hearing of an ordinance to establish a budget for FY 2023. This is July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. Ms. Beauregard.
Great, thank you. I'm just going to quickly introduce this item. So tonight is the public hearing on the FY 23 proposed budget. We first presented the budget to City Council on March 24th. We advertised this public hearing on April 6th, and that public hearing is happening tonight. I'll just quickly say a few things. In the general fund, there are no changes to tax rates. Real estate tax rate remains at 92 cents per $100 assessed value. Mr. Trayer will talk about the environmental fund fees during the next item. That's a separate public hearing. The total budget for all funds is proposed at 142.9 million. General fund is proposed at 65.2 million. I've already gone over many of the details of the budget. You've heard it a few times now, and you've heard many of the major points. One thing I will point out that the schools pointed out earlier is, as of last week, there is an additional $365,000 to help fully fund the schools in FY 23. So Mr. Trayer and I are here to answer any questions if there are any before the public hearing begins.
All right, are there any questions by council members for Ms. Beauregard? All righty. This will take us into the public hearing. I have another statement to read that Mr. Blair was gracious enough to type up for me. I will now open the public hearing, so if you wish to speak, please approach the podium and will alternate between individuals physically present and those that have their hands raised via the Zoom platform. Again, this is just the same. When I bang the gavel, you can come to the podium and speak concerning the public hearing involving the FY 2023 budget. We'll alternate between the audience, the live audience, and our citizens on Zoom. So with that, the public hearing is now open. Would anyone from the audience care to address the council? Welcome.
My name is Randolph Burton. I live at 211 Hendron Avenue. And I just wanted to say that I know that there's always way more projects and worthwhile activities to fund than we have money for. I know it's a difficult job to make sure everybody gets the money that they need. And I just want to say that on behalf of the Library Advisory Board for Stanton Public Library, and as a citizen of Stanton who appreciates the library, I want to say thank you for your ongoing support of the library, which is really just one of the wonderful community assets that we have in Stanton. So that's it. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your service. All right. Is there anyone with their hand raised on Zoom? All right, caller, you may begin.
Hi, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my name's Allison Profeta. I live in Stanton, and I'm very happy about the agreement that was worked out with Stanton City Schools. But I would like for council to begin addressing the disparity between how the city has spent money on Middle River Regional Jail as opposed to the schools. I understand that there is an agreement, and that funding that you provide to the jail is not something that you can avoid, but I have been learning more about how there are things that you can do. For example, having the Commonwealth's attorney in Stanton participate in the LEAD program, which is a diversionary program that is the Augusta County Commonwealth's attorney participates in and got grant funding for, which I believe that we'd be able to participate in as well, but someone has to apply some pressure to the Commonwealth's attorney for that to happen. So I think that there are things that we as a city can do if there was the political will to have it done. So I hope that Stanton City Council will address that going forward. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Is there anyone else from the audience that would like to address the council concerning the budget? All right, Mr. Kessiker, do we have anyone with their hands raised? All right, with that, the public hearing is now closed. That takes us on to item, well, let me stop there. We have the work session set, Ms. Beauregard, for April 21st,
Yes,
an
ma'am.
additional work
A week-
session?
Yes, a week from this evening.
Right, and then we have the vote on the budget the following Thursday on the 28th.
That was the original schedule, yes.
Okay. Is council ready to move forward next Thursday on voting for the budget?
This
Or
is Brenda
against the
Mead.
budget? Counselor Mead?
Are we not still up in the air as far as what the state budget will provide? And might that not impact some of these conversations, at least the school's budget? And so, I mean, don't we have to have a little more information about that?
Mr. Blair?
But Brenda, that, I mean, as far as we know, that budget from Richmond could be a week. It could be a month. It could be 2 months. I mean, we can't hold the budget vote that far out.
When can we, what's our absolute deadline for a budget?
Well, your legal deadline is June the 30th of 2022, because that's when your appropriation ordinance expires. Saying that, I imagine Mr. Trayer and Ms. Beauregard might want to offer some comments, but that's the legal deadline.
Could we not? I mean, I think that the term was even used, I believe, Leslie, when you said that there might be some budget amendments once Richmond makes its decisions. I mean, I'm pretty sure that the city would like to have the budget in front of them and start making, making things get it. So Jeff's shaking his head. Yes, I would love to. I mean, I don't see why we couldn't vote, whether we vote on the 21st, whether we vote on the 28th, we can get this over with, and then we can actually have a recommendation or something if Richmond does come down with major changes.
So Mr. Trayer can correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as what the state budget does, doesn't affect the city budget much.
No, not significantly. And it could, or, I mean, it may or may not affect the school significantly. I think we could tidy things up with a budget amendment at a later date. It's not unheard of for these, for Richmond to go into June. From what I heard this morning, there is some animosity, between the House and the Senate and the governor, and this thing may play out beyond April 28th. I think that we could proceed if council chose to, and I don't think it will harm the schools, just understanding that we may have to come back with an additional appropriation to help the schools out if they are fortunate enough to receive some additional funds.
Thank you. It's good to have the information.
Oh, absolutely. So what is council's pleasure? Do you want to move forward on voting for the budget at the next meeting on the 21st?
Well, this
Or-
is Carolyn Dull. I have
Counselor Dull.
concerns that we have not ever, in my opinion, seriously discussed returning to curbside recycling. It goes without saying that it's discriminatory to many people in our community who are forced to pay for this recycling and aren't able to participate. And whether it's disabled, elderly, people who don't have a vehicle, parents with small kids who can't get it all loaded along with the recycling and the kids and get over there, people who work shifts that don't allow them to use that recycling place in the park. And I was under the impression there would be further discussion on that.
And that's fine, Counselor Dole. If we have any council member that's not ready to move forward, we can keep the date on the 28th. So is council okay with keeping the date on the 28th to vote for the budget? That's the date
That
we
would
have
be my
scheduled.
preference.
Okay, all right. Okay, all right. Thought I would ask the question, so. All right. Moving on to the next item, which is item D, a public hearing of an ordinance to increase environmental fund fee rates. Ms. Beauregard.
Mr. Phil Traer, our Chief Finance Officer, will walk us through this issue.
Thank you, Ms. Beauregard. Madam Mayor, members of council, it's a pleasure to be here this evening. Tonight, we're here for a public hearing to increase the FY 2023 environmental fund rates by 15%. This hearing was properly advertised on March 31st, 2022, and again on April 7th, 2022. This rate increase follows a plan first presented to council during the 2020 budget process and will raise the monthly residential fee from $20.88 per month to $24.01. This equates to a $3.13 per month increase, $6.26 bi-monthly increase, and equates to an annual increase of $37.56. The rate increases will primarily go towards scheduled CIP projects, both at the Augusta County Regional Landfill as well as local city requirements. Major projects at the landfill includes Phase 5 landfill development, $4 million, scale house relocation and office construction, $1.6 million, various heavy equipment needs at the landfill, as well as local CIP. This ordinance was first introduced at the March 24th, 2022 regular meeting. The Environmental Fund has been reviewed by council at its budget work sessions on March 24th and on April 7th.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions? Okay, just like before, I'm going to read the statement from the city attorney. I will now open the public hearing, so if you wish to speak, please approach the podium and will alternate between individuals physically present and those that have their hands raised via the Zoom platform. Again, when I bang the gavel, if you can come to the podium, give your name, your address, and you have 5 minutes to speak, either for or against this particular item, and we'll alternate between the audience and the Zoom. So with that, the public hearing is now open. Would anyone from the audience care to speak concerning the environmental fund fee rates? Okay. Mr. Kessinger, do we have any hands raised?
No, ma'am.
All right. Anyone? All right.
Wait a minute.
Okay, all right. I'll wait, Mr. Fossa.
Hope I'm in the right ballpark now.
If you want to discuss the environmental fund fees, yes.
I never know whether I'm in the right ballpark.
I'll give you a thumbs up when
My
it's-
name is Albino Albert Foster. I live in Bowling Street. I know you all want to do what's right for Stanton. I know that. And for the people in Stanton. And if it means supporting environmental structures and deeds, then by all means do so. Okay? Because it's only for the benefit of the people. That's who it's for. You're not benefiting by it, but the people are. But then again, you're one of the people. So therefore you do benefit by it. Okay? Do whatever is necessary to make Stanton a better place. Hopefully by supporting environmental issues and supporting it with money, because it takes money to make things happen. It doesn't happen without money. Okay? So support it. Do the right thing. Have integrity. Know the difference between what's right and what's wrong, and do the right thing. Why does it take so much effort to do the right thing? Okay?
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
I'm
Foster.
sorry.
No, that was great. All right, do we have anyone with their hands raised?
Right, and there's a wrong.
All right.
Right thing.
Anyone else in the audience? With that, the public hearing is now closed. All right, that takes us on to item E, a consideration of a resolution in support of Governor Youngkin's amendments to HB 902 and SB 283. Ms. Beauregard.
Sir John Blair, City Attorney, will address this item.
Good evening, Mayor Oakes and council. The item that was added at the beginning of this meeting, item E, as you probably know, this week, well, let me back up. Earlier on March 12th of this year, the General Assembly enacted a bill that would have allowed the voters of Augusta County to conduct a referendum on moving their court facilities from the city of Stanton to a location in Augusta County, which I think is going to be Verona, where the county office buildings are. And that bill had a referendum date of November 2022. It also allowed the county to select one architect to present two proposals to the voters of Augusta County. And the Augusta County voters would, a majority would elect to either retain the court facilities here in Stanton, Virginia, based on the estimate the architect provided of the cost to do so, or move the court facilities to Augusta County. And again, I think we are fairly certain it would be in Verona near the county office complex. Again, that was adopted by both houses of the legislature. The House voted 97-0 and the Senate voted 38-2 to adopt those particular bills. They're called HB 902 and SB 283. They have identical language. April the 11th was the date that the governor either had to sign them, veto them, or propose amendments to the General Assembly. Or the governor could have chosen not to do anything, and the SB 283 and HB 902 would have become law. On April the 11th, that evening, the governor has proposed some amendments to the bills. The amendments themselves, they changed the date of the referendum from November of 2022 to November 2023. It would also require that two architects appointed by a circuit court judge prepare two separate estimates, one estimate being the estimated cost to move the county's court facilities to Verona. The other would be either an estimate to renovate and expand the current courthouse in Stanton, or to acquire property in the city of Stanton and build a new court facility in Stanton. Additionally, the governor's amendments require, if the assembly approves that bill with the governor's amendments this year, they'd have to re-adopt it next year in 2023 for it to be effective. Again, this came down Monday evening. We got the text of the governor's amendments Tuesday, and that is why with haste we added this to the agenda today. Before you is a resolution that would, it's a very basic resolution, but it states in effect that the City Council of Stanton supports the governor's amendments to HB 902 and SB 283. If adopted, staff would mail a copy of this resolution to all 40 senators and all 100 delegates in the Virginia General Assembly. Time is of the essence because the Assembly is going to reconvene April 27th for what's called the veto session. And that session is when they consider bills that the governor vetoed, as well as bills that the governor's proposed amendments to. I would be happy to take any questions you may have about this proposed resolution or questions about the legislative process.
Are there any questions by council members? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor,
I'm
I
sorry,
just-
I had trouble getting to my unmute button. I do have a question. I needed some clarification on one thing. On the requirement that there be 2 judge-appointed architects developing plans. My reading of that was that these 2 architects would each prepare the full set of plans, as opposed to one architect providing one plan and another architect applying. So to essentially be almost a double check, or a way of providing 2 alternate opinions on both plans. And so I just wanted clarity on that.
Well, I understand where you get that reading, Counselor Mead, but what I would do is point the legislations, well, the amendments to the legislation is probably the more accurate way to phrase that. Say 2 sets of plans shall be prepared separately by 2 architects. And then the next sentence says each set of plans shall be schematic in nature. And I understand where you get that reading. I read it as the 2 sets prepared separately by 2 architects, but then that next sentence that says each set of plans, I would interpret it as the one architect prepares one and one the other, but I certainly understand where you get the other reading as well.
That they're essentially the two architects are developing plans for the same thing. Not 2 different things, so that there can be a comparison of those estimates.
Well, I would respectfully disagree with that, in the sense of when you read through the legislation, ultimately, upon submission of the plan in section B, upon submission of the plans meeting the requirements of section A by the governing body to the clerk of court, the court by order shall require the regular election officials to open the polls and take the sense of the voters. And it doesn't provide in that subsection that the court's going to pick which set of plans if there were 2 sets of plans made by each architect. And that's the statutory construction rule that Virginia would apply, that, the judge is not given discretion in picking plans. It says once they're presented.
No, and that's not what I'm implying, that the judge would, my understanding was that these architects would be appointed by the judge. So these 2 architects would be appointed by the judge. And I wonder if you might read verbatim that the section of the amendment, because I just want to make sure I'm understanding it correctly.
Sure. First, it says 2 sets of plans shall be prepared separately by 2 architects duly licensed to practice architecture in the Commonwealth and selected by the judge designate in case numbers CL 21002043-00 and CL 2100500-00. Each set of plans shall be schematic in nature, include a good faith estimate of all reasonable costs utilizing the same methodology in arriving at such estimates, and be made available to the public at least 2 months prior to the planned date of the referendum. And then when you get to subsection B, it says upon submission of plans meeting the requirements of subsection A by the governing body to the clerk of court, the court by order entered of record in accordance with Article 5 of Chapter 6 of Title 24.2 of the Code of Virginia
This is where you can leave out the code numbers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shall require the regular election officials of the county to open the polls and take the sense of the voters on the matter as herein provided. And so what I'm saying again is if you had both architects prepare 2 sets of plans, somebody would have to pick which plans out of those. Whereas if you read this and one architect prepares the plan for relocating to Verona, and the other architect prepares the plan of either staying in Stanton in the current facility or staying in Stanton with a different facility, there wouldn't be any need to pick the plans. And again, the legislation does not provide for anyone to decide which plans go on the ballot. It's just once they're submitted, they go on the ballot.
Okay.
So both plans will be there for people to vote on? Is that what you're saying?
Right,
Yes.
right. Well, that won't be what folks vote on. The plans will be available to the public, but the public will have an option to either vote to move the court facilities to Verona or to keep the court facilities in Stanton.
And the respective expense will be mentioned.
Correct.
Yes. The cost will be there.
Right. Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor Oakes,
Counselor Darby.
I move that council adopt the proposed resolution and have staff deliver a copy of the resolution to each member of the Virginia General Assembly.
All right, there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second. Terry Holmes.
All right, Counselor Holmes is second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Kessinger, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Robertson,
No.
Ms. Mead,
Aye.
Mr. Holmes,
Aye.
Mr. Claffey,
Aye.
Ms. Dull,
Aye.
Ms. Darby,
Aye.
Mayor Oakes.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you. Okay, that takes us to matters from the interim city manager. Ms. Beauregard.
All right, I have a few items to mention tonight. The first one is that Jeff Johnson and Cheryl Wagner have been talking with researchers from the University of Virginia about a proposed project that would assess the impacts closing Beverly Street has on pedestrians. And once approved by the university, this interdisciplinary project will involve the colleges of engineering, architecture, and business to quantify and analyze how closing Beverly Street to vehicular traffic changes how pedestrians perceive and engage with their surroundings. Over the summer, they will use eye tracking glasses, which look pretty cool, by the way. I'll send you a picture of that, and other biometric monitors, along with surveys and traffic information to collect data when Beverly Street is open and when it is closed. And in return for some basic assistance with communications and logistics coordination, the city and the SDDA will have access to the findings as well as some of the raw data. And this additional information will help us as we make decisions about the future of shop and dine out in downtown. So stay tuned for that. Just quickly, I wanted to mention, since everybody's very interested in this, the animal shelter, the owners had a meeting last Friday. We talked about the 23 budget and the MOU, which we continue to work on, which will go before the elected bodies for your approval at some point. We'll be starting interviews for the director position. And I would like to report that the new dishwasher was installed and the floors are being addressed. There was quite a bit of public comment time, and I'll just mention a few of the things that was talked about, including having a regular meeting date established, which we do want to do. There's just a lot of work right now to do. I think once we get through the interviews or even before, we'll be able to do that. Providing materials related to those meetings, talking more about an advisory group, which we all very much support and have an interest in establishing, and more frequent communication, talking about how we're moving forward with improvements at the animal shelter. And I'll just note also, for anyone interested, the animal shelter webpage on the city website is now under the city manager's office webpage, and that will include agendas and materials, and as well as the calendar on the homepage. Finally, I'll just mention that the DEI workshop that was featured earlier in this meeting, that audio will be posted on the Equity and Diversity Commission webpage, which is under the City Council webpage. We'll also put all the materials and the readings that were provided, and we'll be starting to look at scheduling interviews so that we can stick with our plan to appoint the commission by May 26th. And that's all I have this evening.
All right, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, now we're to the point of matters from the public. This part of City Council's agenda is entitled Matters from the Public. It's a time that council sets aside to hear from citizens and others about a wide variety of subjects. A copy of the Stanton City Council's Matters from the Public rules are available in paper form at the clerk's desk and online on the City of Stanton's webpage. You are asked to familiarize yourself with those rules before commenting. Please come to the podium or begin your call, identify yourself, and complete your remarks within 5 minutes. And just like before, we'll alternate between folks in the audience and folks on the Zoom. So with that, the matters from the public is now open.
Open.
Thumbs up, Mr. Fossa, thumbs up.
I have many, many things to talk about. First of all, with the ASPCA, there was a fella who passed away this past June. He had roughly about $100 million. And he was supposedly a supporter of the shelter, the animal shelter. I wonder, has anybody ever investigated? The fellow's name was Charlie Strickler, alias Charlie Hunter III. He had tons of money. Did he ever give any money since he passed away to the shelter? I don't know. I can't find out. Maybe you can find out what his will was all about. Secondly, I don't come here to ruffle your feathers because you get enough ruffling as it is. But I have to tell you, things are just not simple. With respect to the courthouse, it has now suddenly become extremely confusing and complicated. Put it in the hands of the legislature, and that's what they do. However, there was a Chinese philosopher who's by the name of Confucius, who said, out of confusion comes understanding. I'm confused as to what's going on. I think you should have 3 architects, not 2, because they're going to be battling against each other. And they're going to wind up into, neither one of them is going to be acceptable. I don't know. I don't understand what's going on. I know I started all this business years ago, and I understand there are people sitting here, but there are very few of them that get up to the podium and speak about different things. I don't understand why they're quiet. I mean, you listen, but there's never any reaction. With just listening without any reaction doesn't make much sense to me. There was a case of 2 parents that came and complained about traffic in their street. You could have settled the problem very easily by telling those 2 people, those 2 women who were concerned about their children, saying to them, speak to Chief Williams. That's his area of concern. He would settle it very well. He's a decent person, and he would settle it very, very well. But these things are not happening. We're listening, but nothing is happening. It's getting more and more confusing. I started out by picketing the assessments of my facility. It's way over assessed. It's now less than 13 feet away from the railroad. What is the thing that generates assessment? Location, location, location. I don't even think that the assessors even took into consideration location, and the house just creaks, mounts up and down, and it's not worth that kind of money. It's worth somewhere around 69, 70,000. But when you start getting over 80,000, and then how many of you have visited Newtown to talk to some people and find out whether they're losing their house because of the assessment increase? I don't understand. I don't understand what's going on. Maybe some of you can give me some answers, or maybe there are no answers. I mean, I'm not here to ruffle your feathers or give you a hard time. I want you to understand. I know you're trying to do what's best for the people in the city. How many people in Newtown are going to lose their houses because of the new assessments? Who benefits by it? The realtors made sure that their assessments didn't go up by 2.5%. Inflation is now 8%. If they had given everyone an assessment of 8 or 10%, that would have been acceptable for everybody. But you can't expect that the wealthy people are riding on the backs of those who can ill afford it. And that's not right. It's out of order. Integrity, not honesty, integrity, knowing the difference between what's right, what's wrong, do the right thing. I know you want to do the right thing and you're going to have to ruffle some feathers to do that. I only have 5 seconds.
Well, thank you.
Say something.
Thank you,
Just don't
Mr.
sit.
Fossa.
Listen,
All right, do we
because
have anybody with their hands raised?
No,
All
ma'am.
right, would anyone else in the audience? Okay, I see you. Hi, welcome.
My name is Cindy Connors. I live at 106A Skyline Avenue. I want to talk about the recycling program. So last year I spoke at this microphone and in other ways against the removal of curbside delivery. And through that process, I corresponded with the mayor and received a response on April 18th of last year that the city manager would get back with me regarding the parameters by which you would judge the success of the new program, because we were told it was a trial program. Then it took till May 27th and a reminder at this meeting to get a response from the city manager, and then I did. And I was told there were not yet any parameters by which to judge the success of the trial program. And it seems funny to me in all my work experience, et cetera, we don't establish the parameters by which we judge the success of the program after the program. You do it before. Otherwise, you're just going to be able to manipulate the numbers to make it a success if you haven't predetermined what trial program success is. But then as of today, I still don't know what the parameters are for judging the success of the new trial program. I still speak in opposition to the Gypsy Hill Park drop-off thing for all the reasons that Councilwoman Dole said and others. I'm one of the people that chooses to pay for a private company to pick up my recycling. Look, I have a car and I am physically capable, but I don't actually have the time to go there. I am retired, I volunteer. I would actually have to take away from time, say at the Blue Ridge Area Food Bank or the other things I volunteer to do in order to sit there for an hour and recycle my stuff. So I pay the money to have somebody pick it up. Fortunately, I'm able to, but not everyone is, especially in my neighborhood on the West End. Most people aren't willing to spend their disposable income on picking up recycling, and many of them can't recycle. I've talked to my neighbors directly about this, and many of them can't. So I would rather pay my money to the city to have city employees pick up the recycling, have more people able to do it, etc. So, and I especially would like to know, what are the parameters of the success of the trial program and how do we do? Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have their hand raised in Zoom?
No, ma'am.
Would anyone else care to speak?
Barbara Lee, I live on 904 Rockaway Street, the most dangerous street in town now. And I pray every morning because my neighbor takes her 2 children to school over at McSwain. And when she comes out of Rockaway, that traffic coming down that hill, somebody's gonna get hurt. And that's when the city will take action. Now, I did get a letter from the superintendent out here. He says he finds no pole to put a mirror on. Now, I travel Stanton quite a bit. There are several mirrors on poles in this town. I don't know what the problem is, but I will say this. Wait until someone loses their life up on that corner, because this city council cannot find a pole to put a mirror on to see that traffic code will come over top of that hill. I'm here to tell you, they won't sue you because I will. Warning.
All right, thank you. Do we have anyone with their hand raised?
No, ma'am.
All right. Do we have anyone else in the audience? Welcome back.
Thank you. So I'm Dr. Mary Miller, still Dr. Mary Miller, 471 Albemarle Avenue. And I keep thinking, so that's why I keep talking to you about it. It is the love of our children and the recognition that the excellence of their education that will make Stanton stand out and above other cities. Many of us stayed in this room until 10:45 on the night of March 24th. It was a school and a work night for many. We listened to the voices of children, parents, teachers, school employees, and administrators opening their hearts for our schools. They hope we can share our riches with the goal of excellence and not just the status quo. Our schools offer our children opportunities and mentors to help them develop their character, competence, confidence, and self-esteem. Many school employees contribute to our children's development, including janitors, aides, bus drivers, cafeteria workers, and others. They too deserve our support and the right to a comfortable standard of living. The people of Stanton talk about their heritage. We learned about the Effie Ann Johnson Day Nursery and Preschool started in 1939 by an African-American teacher. We learned about the first African-American Freemasonry Mount Zion Lodge west of the Blue Ridge Mountains. It was organized in 1867. They provide humanitarian aid. We learned about the Kenneth Jones Funeral Home founded in 1947. Mr. Jones contributed to in many ways here in Stanton. All three historic markers are on North Augusta Street and were a project of the Stanton Augusta County African American Research Society. Ribbons at all three markers were cut by our mayor, Andrea Oakes. Liberty University sends students to the Monacan Native Americans in Amherst, Virginia, to learn about the indigenous history, including the practice of eugenics. We can learn and develop empathy for the diversity in our community. We have room to include all of our people and ensure justice for everyone. As we learn, we can promote educational opportunities, honor our elders, and enrich our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone with their hands raised?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Would anyone else like to come to the podium? Oh, okay. I see you. Hi, welcome.
Hi, Yvonne Wilson, 2017 First Street here in Stanton. Wow, I went blank. That's a while. Anyway, so I know that everybody is talking about education, but there's something that nobody is talking about that's going on in our public schools right now, which is kind of disturbing. I am a realist, so I take the good with the bad. There are certain schools in Stanton City Public Schools that have an issue with violence. I've had the displeasure of watching fight videos that are taking place in our public schools. They put them on TikTok, they put them on YouTube, they put them on World Star. These fights go on for 2 or 3 minutes before any authority figure gets involved. You can Google it and see it yourself. So although I understand the importance of education, I understand the importance of money needed for education, but none of that means anything. Diversity, inclusion, it means nothing if there's still violence in our schools. I saw an authority figure. I don't know if it was a principal, I don't know if it, but it was a grown man at the school breaking up a fight between 2 girls. It took 2 minutes for him to respond because it was so violent. Nobody talks about that. Maybe because you want to sweep that under the rug just so you can get the funding that you need. That bothers me. I support education. I support diversity. A lot of you in this room do not agree with my ideals. That's fine. But I think we can all agree that violence and bullying and lack of intervention for peace in our schools should be the utmost importance before anything else. Here's the other ugly fact. Most of the people who were involved in the violence look just like me. How can we sit here and talk about inclusion and diversity? And the very ones that are screaming for it are the ones that are also perpetrating the opposite. This bothers me. So what I can hope is that when you in the public school system here in the city of Stanton get your money, set aside some money to figure out what's really going on with the students here at school, because we've got kids that are being bullied. We have kids that are being punched, having their hair pulled. And diversity, inclusion, ideology, that means nothing if that's not settled, ladies and gentlemen. Work on that first. Safety, not safe spaces, actual safety. Find out what's going on with your children. A lot of these children lash out at other children because there's something going on at home. There could be some sort of horrid abuse that's going on at home, and they're bringing it to school and are taking it out on the other students and the other teachers. And there's not one person doing anything about that. You have an extra 325 grand coming to you. I would hope that you would use that extra money wisely and figure out what's going on with our children and curb this violence in our schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone with their hands raised?
No, ma'am.
All right. Anyone else that has not spoken? All right. I now call the matters from the public closed, and I will entertain a motion to go into a closed meeting.
Mayor Oakes.
Mr. Blair, why are you looking at me like that?
Um,
Okay. Councilmember Darby.
I move to enter a closed meeting for discussion of the potential award of a public contract with government consulting firm involving the expenditure of public funds, where discussion in open meeting would adversely affect the public body's bargaining position or negotiating strategy pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A29.
There's a
And-
motion on the floor.
And there was another,
And then there's,
Uh,
here you go, Amy. You got it.
where's the next? Let's see.
Here you go.
I have it if,
And to discuss the performance of specific public officers and appointees of the public body, and specifically the members of the nominating committee pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A1.
Right. We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Right, Vice Mayor Robertson has second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Kestaker, please call the roll.
Ms. Mead,
aye.
Mr. Holmes,
Aye.
Mr. Claffey,
Aye.
Ms. Dull,
Aye.
Ms. Darby,
Aye.
Mayor Oakes,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Robertson.
Aye.
The motion carries.
All right, we're now in a closed meeting.